Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Jason Hornsby, Christoph Fournier, John Travolta, JMels24, Yuyanamento, Iron26, Endless, Goldie McKiernan, Retro Bill, More Books, Kennebear, Fiber Oats, Bogey, Michael Kahn, Rob H, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Mel B Styles, Troy Shuker, Harry Blade, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Delrest Watson, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
And that rocket ship had a nice big window.
When and how has that statement ever worked on anything? We know it's real because it looks so fake. When has that ever worked?
It's a Jedi mind trick.
Yeah,
When
they do
Eli
that
was
to us,
explaining
though.
the mission.
Yeah. But they do that to us all the time, right? I mean, only different, not quite as blatant as that. Some of the stuff they'll say, especially now as a flat earther, right? Some of these things they say really stand out. It's like, oh man, that's funny. Oh,
That Andrew Tate guy, he's a flat earther.
Is he? No kidding. That'd be good if he is.
And but thing is, I think my friend told me, I was just texting him. He said that he had to drop it because right now it's Andrew Tate versus the world, and everyone would debate him on every little thing. So of course he doesn't have the info. He just believes that Earth is flat, But yeah, I think he had to drop it because everyone's gonna want to debate him.
Wow. Yeah, that's the truth.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Just have to believe. All right.
No, well, he could be part of the programming, but
Andrew Tate.
Andrew Tate,
Yeah.
I seen a video. I actually had a clip where he's on he posted on Twitter. He was showing a watch, but somebody in the background was calling somebody a globetrot because he was saying we were traveling at some certain speeds. Like you didn't even know the amount of speeds we're traveling around, and
Yeah, I think it's him and his brother. They're both flat earthers, but since it's Andrew Tate versus the world, he had to drop it because he doesn't have the info, of course, and he knows he's going to get they're going to debate him, and I guess he had to drop it. I would too because he's debating everything else in his life. So
Good morning, voice check.
yep, can hear you loud and clear.
Hey, humble.
Good morning. Just curious, is Nathan on yet?
Yeah, he just arrived. Yeah.
I just had a quick question. With regards to the scientific process, at what point is math acceptable in the whole process? At what point is the use of mathematics acceptable in the process, or is it at all?
To quantify, yeah, but before you quantify, you want to establish the cause of it. Then you quantify how much.
But as a part of the process itself to remain scientific, when you say quantify, I could understand, you know, like with the boiling point of water. Yes, once the heat has been established as the cause, I can see, but I wouldn't call that math to work out the temperature, because it will tell you with a thermometer. I don't consider that math. I mean equations. At what point
Yeah.
is it acceptable to use an equation and still call it a part of the scientific method?
Well, remember,
No, it's
because
not.
you could no,
It's an equation. It's not.
yeah,
It's method.
it's a remember, math is a tool. It's like a language for you can describe stuff with, right? So once you have established your cause and effect, you can quantify. Well, this amount of yada yada yada. I mean, this is a a mathematical formula that describes this cause and effect. That you already established, right? So it's just math is just a language, bro.
Hey, I got a question. Can y'all help me out?
Sorry.
I think he wasn't done though.
Yeah, the thing is, uh, this word observed in science is a very interesting one, because you can hear that something has been observed. Say the wave function has been observed, but then I've also heard that the wave function is just a mathematical concept, or it's basically only shown in the math. So
That's why.
when we say observed, it's not like I look out the window and I see a tree. It's like looking out the window and seeing something else, and then mathematically working out and having a result that says tree. If I know I may sound confusing, but
Just diffraction.
The wave.
Wave
That's what they
function.
do with
In the
the
case of the boiling water, it's not mathematic, is it? It's a scale. In this case, degrees centigrade. How many degrees centigrade will need for the water to behave like such? So once the water is bubbling, what is the required scale for it? Is it in centigrades or is it in Fahrenheit? That is a scale. It has nothing to do with
that's right.
mathematics
But we
whatsoever.
wouldn't, in the scientific process, we wouldn't, to me, in that case, the scale wouldn't come in, because really we're establishing the cause of an effect. The cause of the effect is the heat. When the math part, or when the numbers part came in, that's where there was a difficulty with Jeranism. They were trying to put that in there, and I would not, again, I could be wrong, I would not consider that a part of the scientific process that kept it scientific. When the
Well,
math came in, it obscured things.
they're
That's what
questioning the scale, isn't it? Heat, it will cause the water to heat up, obviously. Now, how much heat will make it to boil? It's a different story.
right, and that's why I'm saying.
You focused on his
Sorry.
comparative example, though. So, from what I'm hearing, Humble, you're saying when you take the description in isolation of a wave function, that is just existent in maths, right? Correct?
Yes, sir.
Right. That is correct. The maths is useful in this instance as a description of something that's occurring. So you're using maths to describe something that's an occurrence. In this case, diffraction, interference. So it's a way of describing the interference. But that happens in reality, but the interference itself, diffraction.
Okay, so so the answer to this question then is that math does play a part in the scientific process.
No, it wouldn't matter if I described.
Sorry?
No, it wouldn't make any difference, right? So instead of it being light passing through a double slit, let's change it into something slightly different, just so I can make my example. right? Let's say you've got a magic machine that throws darts at a dartboard, yeah, and it keeps throwing them at the dartboard, and they seemingly come out initially, the darts, randomly. In other words, you know, sometimes it hits the bullseye, sometimes it hits the 12, sometimes it hits the 1. You with me? So the darts
Yes.
Right. Well, the process of looking through a double slit in the experiment is changing something that's happening in nature. That's diffraction. So instead of seeing diffraction, you get what we normally see. In other words, normal light. So if, by comparison, that difference is instead of the dart going all over the dartboard and you being able to describe with maths the random pattern that appears on the dartboard. So you can say, all right, see this random pattern that the darts keep hitting in? Yeah? I can describe that random pattern with maths. Yeah? You with me so far? But there is definitely something happening. The dart's hitting a dartboard. Now,
Thank you.
I don't know, let's just say that somebody comes along at some point and kicks the machine. Yeah? Just kicks it. And then at that point, instead of the darts going randomly all over the dartboard and you being able to describe that, let's just say you describe it as a probability distribution, otherwise known as a wave function. Let's say that after the kick to the machine, every single dart hits the bullseye. Every time. Yeah? So,
Yes.
right. So, by comparison, the dart always hitting in the same place and being predictable and just that's what it is comparable to how light normally behaves. You don't typically see diffraction patterns. That's not the norm, right? Yes, you can see diffraction in nature. I tried to go through this with you before. I'm just doing my best because this isn't my specialist subject by any means. But anyway, the equivalent to just normality, light just behaving as it normally does, is the dart hitting the bullseye every single time, predictably. Yeah? Or when you cross-qualify it with the double slit, it's like shining a torch and seeing the torch hit on the wall. Yeah, you shine the torch hits the wall, there it is. Every time you flash the torch on or off, it'll always hit the wall in the same place. Yeah, that's the norm. So when you turn the light on and suddenly it's going all over the place, you're like, wow, what's going on? Well, that's interference. There's an interference, right? So that's the distinction between the two. Yes, it's all happening in nature. Yes, we can show these all as phenomena and piecing them together in terms of the scientific road of discovery that is the investigation into light leaves it a little bit convoluted in terms of you saying, okay, so at what point did somebody stumble over light diffraction and see it collapse into our light is normally observed, just actualized? You're like, well, I can't really show that as a natural phenomena if you want to be that hyper specific about it. You could qualify it in that way. And the only justification you've got is everything that's being studied happens and does happen and can be observed to happen, or be happening, in nature. And that's where this scientific journey of discovery has taken them. But ultimately, it's the difference between why would you have light interference versus that interference no longer being interference and being the real world and how it presents itself. Does that hopefully make sense? About as much sense as the last time, probably.
Well, again, maybe it's because the simplicity of my mind on things, and this is why I'd like maybe to ask a question that if QE's been to sort of university, has this stuff down, but I was wondering if I dropped, say, I don't know what would be an appropriate amount in your chat or something that you could send to him, or I would just like 5 minutes of uninterrupted asking, because I would have liked to have stopped you at one point and asked the simple question, why, when we use the word observed, do I then have to use math to figure out what I've observed?
You're not
I
figuring it
don't
out.
see that.
Let me stop you. Because you're not figuring it out with the maths. You're merely describing it. Describing light interference with maths as a probability distribution isn't figuring anything out at all. It's just describing what you've seen.
Oh, okay.
So
then,
likewise, when just one more, just try once more. When the darts are hitting the board, hold on. When the darts are hitting the board, you can stand there and tally where on the board, which number on the dartboard the dart hits, and you can write it down, right? And then after you've written it down, you can devise a table, a graph, yeah, and then come up with a pattern and describe that pattern in the language of maths to another person to try and qualify what you saw happening when the darts were hitting in all the different places. The thing that was happening, the darts hitting the board in all the different places, is the phenomena, or by equivalent, is the phenomena. But you writing it down so that you can describe at what point it hit and at what number it hit and what location, in what order, those are all just describing what occurred. Now that, again, by equivalent, is wave function. It's just describing the distribution of probability of the darts. So given that they're hitting all over the board with a chart, a graph, you can say, where's it most likely to hit next when something in reality happens? But again, you haven't figured out why we have diffraction, or in the case of wave function collapse, the description of the transition from interference to how we just see light. That, again, can be described in terms of, I can describe them hitting all over the board and then compare and contrast mathematically with it just hitting the bullseye every single time. But that doesn't say why that happened or explain it in any way. It just describes it.
But I have that in reality on the screen already. I have that distribution, and I have a different distribution that tells me that there is a difference. To me, that's being observed. I just okay.
So step one, yeah. So we have ourselves a phenomena. So step two,
yes.
Why did that happen? Well, I think this caused it. In the case of the double slit, it's knowledge of which path the light went through. Once you know which path it's going through, and it's the two slits that are causing it to have interference in the first place, or so it seems once you set it up at the point where it's got diffraction. Well, at that point, knowing which path the light went through causes it to stop being a distribution at all. It's no longer a distribution at all. You've no longer got something you can qualify as a probability distribution, aka wave function. You've just got it hitting, like with my torch, it's just hitting the wall. It's just doing what you'd expect it to do. So why did that happen? Well, because we knew which path the light went through. How do you figure that out? You vary whether or not you know whether or not it's gone through both or either or paths. And when you don't, you get diffraction. And when you do, you don't get diffraction.
So the pattern on the plate is, I would say the pattern on the plate has already told me I have diffraction. Yay or nay?
That is diffraction. The pattern is diffraction. It's just interference. And you saying, okay, in the case of when you can break it down to particle by particle, what's hitting the plate in an order, by equivalent, my darts hitting one at a time, you can see that when you break it down in terms of a graph, you've got a higher likelihood of it hitting in the middle and a less likelihood of it hitting on the outside. But it's always just how likely it is when you fire the next bit of light at the plate. It will hit where you predict it will hit. But like with anything, you will get it wrong because you'll say, well, it's most likely to hit a 0.1 right in the middle. Lo and behold, next bit of light gets fired and it hits a 0.7, making your prediction incorrect because it's just interference.
Yeah, boy. Okay, thank you very much. I will I've got something to think about now. Okay, thanks.
I hope I've done well. Like I say, this is far from my specialist subject.
Hey, I got an easy question for you guys.
Okay.
It's a simple globy one. My brother told me to ask. He said since oxygen or air, CO, I don't know whatever the hell is made at ground level. He says Sherpas go up in the mountain with the ice. I mean the oxygen tanks. He goes so it runs out, right? The air runs out. He goes, isn't that outer space once it runs out? Once we're high enough or something like that?
If you like, I mean, NASA qualify outer spaces from ground level. So depends how you want to look at it. Again, mathematically, the description of the thinner air could be qualified as a vacuum. It's just maths, it's just language. You want to call that a vacuum? You can. Just describing it, though, isn't it? So yeah, call it whatever you like. You want to call it a sky vacuum? You want to call it, that you can. But what?
So he's saying there's a spot high enough in the mountains where the air runs out.
That's not true.
No. Well, I mean, if he wants to show that, but it'd be in violation of natural law. If there's an area of volume, then gas is going to want to fill it. So imagine that so you can imagine the journey, right? There's a guy, a Sherpa, at the bottom of the mountain, and he's had quite a big curry the night before, and he farts, and everyone around him goes, "Oh, it stinks," because it's in quite a high concentration, the sulfur or whatever, the gas that's come out of him, the nasty, noxious, horrible smell. Everyone can smell it in close vicinity around the campfire. Now, what do you think is going to happen to that gas as it expands out, working its way between the gases that are already in existence? What's going to happen? At the top of the mountain, can the Sherpa smell it? Or has it spread out and got lesser and dissipated into the volume of gas that we have? Ergo, up at the top of a mountain, there's going to be less concentration of gas because it's not being created there. There's less assholes there to make the smell. Down at the ground, there's plenty of assholes, so it stinks. Likewise, the gas is in high concentration at the ground level, but it's dissipating into the area of volume it has. Now, you can say, well, look, it's thinner at the top. Yeah, to be a lower gas pressure, it's still a gas pressure. It has to be contained for that very dynamic system to develop.
That's what I was going to ask. It still has to be contained, right? Are they talking about a gradient here?
Yeah, a gradient.
It has to be contained. Without the containment, you're not getting anything.
His question is, can I call?
Smell, you're not getting farts to smell. You're not getting air to breathe. We're not here having this conversation. End the story.
Sure, but what the guy's saying is, right, let's say I go 20 miles above Everest. Air's really thin up there. Can I call that a vacuum? Call it whatever you like. That's the answer to the question, because it's arbitrary. I call it a unicorn. What do you call it? A vacuum? Right, other people call it outer space. Does it matter what they call it? No. Is it 10 to the minus 17 tall and vaster than any comprehensible space you've ever imagined? No, because gas would be filling it. All of it would fill it immediately, because you'd never achieve the gas pressure to have it slowly be able to work its way between the other gas particles up to the top of Everest, the fart, that is. Because all of the gas that is working its way between is only there because it's contained in the first place. For it to be dynamic in nature, to have gas cycles, things like that. You can only have any of those things if the entire system is contained. Therefore, no, there's no beyond our gas pressure sky vacuum with a Kármán line arbitrarily defining the point where the gas just stops expanding into the space that it's got. But if you want to call the thin air above the mountain a vacuum, because I don't know whatever Torr value it is at that point, but if you want to call that Torr value a vacuum, you can. But you can also call the 14.7 psi at sea level a vacuum, and NASA do. They start the arbitrarily calling spaces that aren't contained for gas that's at pressure without containment anything. They start their description at sea level of a vacuum.
And you have a vacuum without a container?
You could still learn to survive in that amount of oxygen in the summit of Mount Everest.
Yeah, there's a lack of
So-
concentrated gas because there's very little vegetation, but the gas has still made its way up from where there is a high concentration of vegetation. And likewise, the Sherpa at the top showing his tourist goes, "Oh, Jose." You know, you can just detect it. It's just very thin.
Same thing. You can't have a vacuum without containment as well.
Right. Already 2 minutes past 2. Sure is.
2 minutes past 8 where I am.
It's what?
2 minutes past 8 where I am.
No more Brian Cox.
Oh, things are going wrong. Let's try my intro again. Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by... You could see it's all going slightly wrong today. We are joined by 10th Man Rising, the Adam Meakin, Righteous Force, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
What do you say? What do you say? What do you say?
Woohoo!
Hey, hey, hey. I did something, Fat Albert.
The reason for the slight issue at the beginning of the show is I have to give various different bits of software administrative control over the computer, and if you leave one of them in the foreground when you're trying to use a different one, it doesn't work. So I've pressed buttons and things haven't happened, except it has started going live. But there we go. So that aside, any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
No, but we should make it into a comedy so we could reach people.
Saying that, Nathan, I've got a little poem on that question.
Oh, go ahead. That'd be lovely.
It's called Formerly Known as the Curve. Back in the old days, they used to say, especially when watching a boat sail away, the boat would disappear bottom first. They said this was because of Earth curve. But then in 2020, January, they discovered the black swan imagery. The distance to the oil rigs and the horizon afar proved the globe radius out by far. Finding this proof caused lots of tension and a list of globe alterations that I'll briefly mention. The distance to the sun will now have to change. The size of Venus can't remain the same. And what about time and orbits too? What's the ISS going to do? I've only mentioned a few. The size of landmass on maps would alter. navigation and travel would surely falter. These are the things a larger radius would do. What's it going to take to convince all of you?
Absolutely epic. Really good.
That was really good, man.
That's my favourite so far. That was excellent.
Yeah, but then he comes out with another one and we say that's his favorite. I mean, he's amazing.
I don't know. The one about the Greeks was my favourite up until now. Anyway.
You have a great talent there. I'll tell you that.
The Greeks all knew that. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Negative.
Gonna need to know.
The books say 93 million miles. The school books.
They're going to need an R value for
I'm
that,
going to need a flat Earth. Yeah, I'm going to need a flat plane for a radius value.
Any evidence of the R value? That's Earth radius.
Nah, it's really bugged on question number 1.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Now, what does that even mean?
It means evidence that we're turning underneath the stars to cause a not actual deflection claimed to be Coriolis effect because we are turning and the stars are actually still. Ergo, the induced claim to be not actual deflection of the stars is as a result of Earth turning beneath them to induce a Coriolis deflection. That is the claim.
Okay. The evidence that we're moving is we don't feel it.
The evidence is that the stars are rotating. The consequence of them claiming that is that we would feel something and we don't.
But the reference frames have been ruined anyway.
That's just an anti-flat Earth idiot that's, according to YouTube, the preferred content that should be promoted above us because they don't understand that their globe claim has a claim of 2 reference frames and tell us that they're debunked. Idiotic. But that's what gets promoted above us. And we'll get hundreds of thousands of views. Somebody who doesn't even understand the claim.
If the Earth was turning under anything, then it would be turning under everything.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Let's claim to have 2 reference frames. So, yeah. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Not science.
You'd have to be able to observe it, first of all.
Yeah, step
I
1.
just dropped my pen.
I just watched my child's helium balloon disappear into the sky.
Oh, dear.
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
And not science.
Any evidence
observable?
Go on, one more. Observable.
Just saying the things in the sky, the lights and twinkling stars. Things that happen.
At least we got his poem.
It's called up.
Yeah, at least that.
You're breaking up.
Yeah, you're breaking up. Don't they call that observational science?
Observational science? No. That's a... Oh, God, I used this the other day. I've only just learnt this fallacy. A composition fallacy. So you're taking one aspect of the scientific method and then strap on the full title of the process. That's the scientific method, by utilising only one part of it, which would be observation of natural phenomena, not just observation.
Hey, Nathan.
Hello.
What are we going to do about all this space junk debris in orbit?
It doesn't exist. No need to concern yourselves with space junk. Let's put it that way. So the claim that the space junk is no different to the claim that we're going to Mars or the moon. It's claimed to be junk in Narnia. What are we going to do about the absolutely mountainous pile of lion dung in Narnia? What are we to do about that massive problem of the lion's dung? I mean, it's just getting bigger. Have you seen any sewage works in Narnia? No. This is a very real problem, ladies and gentlemen. I suggest you all smash my PayPal link and donate to the very real cause that is the overloading of Narnia with lion dung. So I think the only real solution is to chuck money at the problem. I think that's the only real problem. I think the only real solution... I'm nearly there. One more sentence. The only real solution is to chuck money at the problem, be it Narnia dung or space trash. Just chuck money at it. That's my solution.
I was just referencing a Joe Scott video. He has several of claims he makes about space. So
Who's
just
Joe
another
Scott?
YouTuber to go over.
Is one of them space junk?
Yes, his claim was, "What are we ever going to do about all the space junk?"
I wouldn't concern yourself based on the fact that there's not a second law of thermodynamics violation sky vacuum with a presuppositional orbital rate value based on a radius value we've debunked, and a horizon that's based on an Earth curve edge falling away from you for things to fall around, to be junk to concern yourself with. We've debunked every aspect of the place that this junk's supposed to be. Likewise, you don't need to worry about the poo in Narnia, because it's not a real place. Space isn't real. Don't worry about the junk there.
Yeah, the guy's skipping past it. Like they skip past the angle in navigation. He's skipping past space and talking about something in space when he should be dealing with the fact that there is no space.
Yep. Any evidence you can acquire an elevation angle measurement from a curved baseline?
You could do fuck all with a curved baseline angle measurement.
No swearing, please.
Okay.
You can do plenty with an angle. An elevation angle is very useful. Any evidence that level is not horizontal?
What?
Is there any evidence that level is not horizontal?
But it is.
I can't find any evidence of that anywhere.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Earth sonograms.
Sonograms? What? For pregnant women?
Yeah, they do that on the Earth. P waves and S waves.
So they
That's how
cover it
they
in
can
like
tell.
the lubricant jelly. How do they do
Yeah,
it?
you put it all over.
Smear it all over the surface, drop a few helicopters worth of lubricant jelly, and then a godlike hand comes down with a with a little machine and moves it over and says, "This is going to be a bit cold, but don't worry."
That's how a guy explained it to me. He said it's just like when a woman is pregnant and they take a sonogram. They have done this to the Earth, and they've discovered a molten iron core.
Oh, how lovely.
Exact words.
Yeah, they're going to need a presuppositional R value and a flat plane to bounce these P waves and S waves as the return signal, but to bounce whatever they call the signal into the Earth and get a return angle, they need a flat plane. Their claims come from a flat plane.
Oh dear.
Oh, they work. They got it wrong with the Kohler deep borehole. Their predictions weren't right. So you're expecting me to assume they know what's almost 4,000 miles down in the ground? I don't think so.
Next.
Any evidence you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
Didn't we discuss this already?
It's a daily thing, Neil. We're doing the housekeeping questions.
No, but we just discussed it a few minutes ago. Without containment, you cannot have any gas pressure. We'd all be dead, right?
Yes, that's true. Well, that
We have
concludes
pressure
that.
gradient, though, don't we?
Gas pressure gradient. Yes, we do. Where'd you get the gas pressure without containment? Okie dokie. So we had a bit of fun yesterday with Professor Brian Cox from way back when in the after show. So this will be coming out tomorrow if you're just a general member of the public. Subscribe to my second channel. You can see the Uncut after show from yesterday where Adam dug out a really old clip of Brian Cox learning his wizardry skills and having his art honed by a producer who's trying to get him to deliver a decent line about fabrics of time bending, which he isn't doing. So we had quite a good laugh pulling him apart on that. But we're also self-analysing. We also went back and had a little listen to me, and criticise. I was certainly critical of myself from way back when also. So, in defence of Brian Cox. This is also reasonably old, so I don't know if we'll get through the majority of this. I don't know. Did you send this with a timestamp? It seems to have started at 2:15 10th. Is that intentional? Maybe
No, it was the one that you said, "Oh, I like this guy. I'll do him later."
Right.
We thought it was the one. Yeah.
Right. So, so this is Robert Llewellyn and Professor Brian Cox, and I really like Robert Llewellyn. If you're a little bit younger than me, you might remember him from doing Robot Wars and Scrapyard Challenge, a couple of other things. But the most famous role, as far as I'm concerned, that he was in was this guy you can't really see.
Right. If you jump down,
Change the angle,
and then go into the ocean.
Oh, it does have different angles. You will get to see him, hopefully. They're in a tunnel at the moment. Anyway, he was Crichton from Red Dwarf. That's where if you're going, who the hell is that guy? I'm sure I recognise him. Well, yeah, he was slathered in about 3 inches of rubber when he played that character, so you may not actually recognise him. But nevertheless, I like the guy, so it'd be interesting to hear what the two of them have got to say. So we're going to go through this, hence rattling our way through housekeeping in under 15 minutes, which is good. So we're all ready to rock and roll. Hopefully we'll get some input from
What's
you guys.
What's the video called?
It's called Professor Brian Cox Carpool, and it's on Carpool UK, is the name of the channel.
And go down, and so we're going to try and talk about pressure, what it does to gases and turns them into fluids, and it's just a very visual way of doing that.
Right.
So I'm going to do the last bit.
I see. And is there...
Ooh, this is already juicy. So they're talking about pressure, eh? Ooh, excellent stuff.
Atmosphere of Jupiter denser than ours?
What? We're already off to a bad start with Robert Llewellyn. Atmosphere of Jupiter. So that would be gases at pressure being them pressing on the walls of their container. And that's sat in a sky vacuum, is it, Mr. Llewellyn? No, that's a violation of natural law and an oxymoron. Air doesn't take the shape of a sphere. The light in the sky that you've looked at through your telescope potentially isn't a violation of natural law. Gas in a sphere shape. Gas doesn't take sphere shapes, it takes the shape of its containment. So we're already into both of them on the same vibe. They're happy to beg the question with each other.
Ours.
Oh, well, yeah, immensely. In the core, it ends up being metallic hydrogen.
How the hell do you know? He's talking about a light in the sky. Not only has he got violations of natural law, he knows about the compression of the materials that's going on in the centre of this presumed to be gases compressing upon themselves, ever getting denser with pressure. Well, if they're capable of pressing down towards the centre, then they're capable of pressing out, as gas does, into the area of volume, as gas does.
They call it so dense and such high pressure that you've got this liquid hydrogen that essentially behaves like a metal in the middle.
Wow. Why is he so impressed with this complete bullshit? I'd have hoped you understood the second law of thermodynamics, Robert Llewellyn. Very disappointed in you. I mean, just because you played one of my favourite characters doesn't mean you should, but my expectations of you as Crichton means you've got the memory banks to know this. Surely you should recognise a metaphysical dichotomy, or whatever it is you would babble off as Crichton.
And that would you mean in the centre of the planet?
But it's all gaseous. I mean,
So there's plenty of centre of the planet-based pressure of this claim to be gas giant. So the gases are just pressing down, go boom, boom. So for this description to work, the gas only presses down, go boom, boom. Gases don't behave that way. They expand in all directions.
There may be a rocky core, but it's,
Maybe. I mean, it depends. If I want to bullshit about it, I can. I don't have to. It's entirely up to me. I can give it a solid core. It don't really matter. I'm just making it all up. But do you want it to have a solid core? Solid? Gas? It's up to you. You decide, Robert. I'm already enjoying this.
99% of the thing is gas, but then it becomes liquid because it gets...
See how his hands are moving, right? So what he's doing is he's showing gas behaviour with his hands. So what he's doing is he's got his hands and he's bringing them in. It's like, well, gas behaves like that. Does gas go in to the centre of a sphere when you assume it's atmospheric, or does it expand out to fill the available volume? Because I'm pretty sure it does the latter.
get so pressurized. So it's this huge thing. So,
Someone did say that the first thing you'd say, the first thing I'll say when you start talking is, "Wow, they were right." I'm really, because I never knew that. I thought it was all. I thought all planets were like lumps of rock with no atmosphere. But
you thought all planets were lumps of rock. Okay, so your assumption when you look at lights in the sky is that they're lumps of rock. Why? I mean, it seems when you break it down. So I want a backup from you guys. It sounds utterly absurd, doesn't it?
Yep.
So let's think of other things that are in the sky. Clouds. You know what? Prof Cox. I'm pretending to be Robert Llewellyn. I look up at those clouds and just decide that they're clumps of rock.
That's a good comparison. That's right. Why don't
something
they do
else
that
in the
with clouds?
sky? Well, got more information on them than we have on the lights that he's comparing these two, with maybe a molten iron core, maybe a solid core, maybe a gas core. I don't know. 99.9%. Don't know really. Make it up. I'll make it up later.
Actually, a star. I mean, it's pretty much like the sun, except it's not big enough to initiate fusion. But it's just hydrogen helium.
Why is it that you've decided that lights in the sky initiate fusion? So, I can't remember who the lady was that said that rocks are our cousins. But this is the backstory that he's presumably going to get into now, right? So, without me boring you with this.
Michelle Thaler.
Say again?
Michelle Thaler, shout out.
Michelle Thaler, right? Rocks are our cousins. Well, this is why, because what he's got fusion reaction going on in the heart of a gas giant in a sky vacuum, with the gas moving to the centre with pressure to fuse together and form other materials. Now, they can only go so far in a normal star, like our sun in the heliocentric bullshit world of these descriptions. But at the point of supernova, when these things get to the end of their life and explode because they've seen little lights in the sky do something, right, phenomena that they could be studying with science, but just make up a little story and say that that's causing a fusion reaction to create the heaviest of elements, you know, the platinum and the gold. And that happens in an instant at the high rate of fusion reactions of those sorts of materials. In other words, they're created in the hearts of these dying stars. And the process continues and continues, and it increases as the star goes supernova, and you end up with red dwarfs and all of these other stupid shit that they just come up by pulling it out of their arse. So as a result of all of the heaviest elements being created in these stars when they die, upon them then exploding, and when they explode, they suddenly change their behaviour. They don't fall in on themselves anymore. They explode outwards in the same way gas behaviour does. Yeah, in their story, they're all falling in, creating pressure to create these reactions and fuse together and all the rest of it, and create heavy elements. But when the supernova occurs, suddenly it behaves like normal gas. It just expands in all directions at a high velocity to dissipate itself throughout the universe, to eventually coalesce, because suddenly we're going to have the reverse of what's been described for it to be dissipating itself throughout the universe, for us to have gold on our planet, because some of it's coalesced together, because it's both simultaneously spreads itself out through the universe in line with entropic law, and coalesces in defiance of entropic law. But as a result of it both defying and following entropic law to explode out and coalesce, we have gold here, which has been made in the heart of the dying star. Therefore, those rocks, which eventually obviously have brought life to us out of a slime of nothing, and we've got little bits of these elements like gold and platinum in our bodies, therefore we're basically related to the rocks, because they were born out of the dying stars too. And it's all true because they made it up themselves. I mean, maybe a solid core, maybe a gas core, maybe I can say that they were fused together, maybe it's a reaction, maybe it's whatever I say it is. But ultimately, that's their bullshit story for rocks being our fucking cousins. Excuse my language. Just told someone else.
They can't drill. They can't drill further than 8 miles on Earth.
Hilarious.
Helium. There's nothing else in Jupiter, pretty much. It's a big ball of gas.
How the hell do you know? Because of spectroscopy. That's all you've got to go on.
But it looks like a planet, though, when you see a picture.
Why are you talking in this way? It looks like a planet. You better damn well know it is if you're going to start telling us about what bloody stuff is inside it when you assume it's physical and it's creating various elements with its gas pressure that's only going down, go boom, boom to the centre of a presupposed spherical surface when you've got atmosphere defying natural law. I mean, what, it looks like it? Yeah, that's about as the extent of your proofsies that you get for this crap. It kind of looks like it. What kind of looks like it? Well, the spectroscopy graphs that we have make it, kind of behave like helium or hydrogen, or whatever gas I say. And the fact that it's farcical to say that a gas is just existing in a vacuum, not dispersing, it kind of matches with the lights that I understand when I study similar gases here on Earth. Therefore, it's that gas, in violation of natural law.
Solid. It reflects. Well, it's solid in the sense it reflects light. Right. But it's gaseous, liquid.
Gaseous with his hands moving down. Go boom boom to the centre. That's not how gas behaves, dickhead. Do you know how gas behaves? Gas expands. It's called entropy. Yeah? Like your Sherpa at the bottom of the mountain. Farts. Nice and concentrated when it comes out his asshole. Not very concentrated at the top of Everest. That's an expansion of gas to fill space. Likewise, all the vegetation that creates all of the oxygen eventually makes its way up to the top of Everest as it expands, even with the imposition of all the other gases that are in its way. It bounces off them and bounces around until it makes its way and dissipates into all of the space around it, getting ever thinner. That's moving outwards. That's not moving inwards like you just described with your hands moving inwards, so that you've got a reason for gases to fuse.
Liquid and metallic hydrogen.
Keeps doing it. Keeps shoving his hands together like that's gas behaviour. Are you delusional? Do you not know how gas behaves?
It's like the sun. I mean, the sun's got no solid core, as it were.
Has it? How the hell do you know? You don't. Just a light in the sky.
Just a fusion reactor.
Yes.
Again, back to it's a fusion reaction. Why? Because you've studied the colours. That's basically what this boils down to, ladies and gentlemen. They've had a look at the colours. That's it.
So, any bigger and it would be like that.
Wow. Because this is, I mean...
He's really proud of himself. I'm really proud of this bullshit I've just told you. Cox is so up his own ass, isn't he? It's a shame it's total nonsense and we can rip it to shreds, Cox.
And that's the big questions that everyone, that you don't have...
Questions? Why haven't you got answers? He's just giving you a load of bullshit. Shouldn't raise any questions, he should answer them.
All the questions, there's a hell of a lot of them, but they're all about that, about CERN and about what the experiment that happened recently. And all...
Experiment at CERN? No, you don't know what an experiment is, Robert Llewellyn. Clearly not exactly versed in what science is if you think CERN's an experiment. What was their natural phenomena that they were studying? Hello? Step 1, scientific method. Observe natural phenomena. Step 2, ask yourself what you think caused that effect, and formulate it into a viable hypothesis. If A, my presumed cause of the effect I'm studying, then B, the effect I'm studying. Vary and manipulate A to see if it causes B is an experiment. CERN isn't that.
All that stuff is clearly, and I mean, I haven't got the first idea, or I'm...
Yeah, we know, I just pointed that out. You haven't got the first idea, but yet you're labelling it as they've labelled it when they lied to you about what it does to make you think it's science. Even though you haven't got the first clue, you're still babbling on about it, aren't you, Mr. Llewellyn? Don't babble on about science. Don't call things experiment unless you know what the word means. Clearly, you do not.
But I'm assuming. Let me assume it, then you...
No, we will tell you what you need to know when your ignorance lets you down in this car trip. Don't assume anything. First rule of flat earth debate, do not beg the question. That is to assume your outcome.
Right, I'm assuming that...
Don't.
Scientifically, there's the potential...
Assuming scientifically? No, the only thing you'd do in terms of an assumption would be a supposition of a cause yet to be validated. It's my A in the logic of the scientific method in formulation of hypothesis. If A, that's a assumed cause of the effect. It hasn't been validated yet, though, so that's the only assumption in science.
To recreate what happens in the sun.
Sorry, recreate what happened in the sun? What's the sun? You're going to recreate his bullshit description of it. Maybe physical, maybe it's solid, maybe it's a gas, maybe it's a fusion reaction. We can do an experiment to show why that happens. Step 1, observe natural phenomena. If you're studying the sun, what causes the sun? That would be the appearance of that light we see in the sky over the horizon. That's what I want to know if I'm doing science on the sun. What causes it? Not what causes dickhead over here sat with his foppy hair describing what he says is at the centre of it.
In a controlled environment on Earth.
Easy.
Controlled environment? What, for the sun? You controlled the sun, did you? So you know exactly what it is. You got it into a controlled environment. You have no idea what the sun is, but you're going forth with your bullshit ways of figuring out why it does something. You have no idea what it is.
I mean, that's a fusion reactor.
Oh, it's a fusion reactor? No, I'm pretty sure it's a steam generator. I mean, it's got a lot of clouds around it, let's be honest. Steam generator. Look at all the clouds around it. Why? 'Cause I say so. Fusion reactor? Anybody ever see... Can someone bring up a picture of a fusion reactor, please? While we're ripping a shred off this stupid idiot, Prof. Brian Cox, I'd like to see a picture of a fusion reactor so we can see what one fucking looks like. And we're going to compare and contrast to the sun. I don't think we need a picture of the sun. I'm pretty sure we all know what the sun looks like. Anybody got a picture of a fusion reactor?
That's easy.
I'm going to Google it real quick.
Sorry? Yeah, if you can dig it out, we'll compare. Maybe he's right. I mean, the assumption, obviously, in the mind's eye of all the people giggling and laughing along with these two boneheads, is going to be that, obviously, sun, as he states, is a... What the hell is this?
That's the sun. I'm in a fusion reactor.
What the... What? This doesn't look anything like the sun! Am I going nuts? Anybody here think this looks like the sun?
It looks like the set on Flash. WB.
Does he know what the sun looks like?
Maybe if you squint
when you get close enough, it looks like that.
Maybe he meant fusion reaction. I don't know if that'll make a difference.
No, he's describing it as a reactor. And it's generating the stuff that makes life. Like, all of the materials are made in the sun. Or other suns when they died and made all of the gold. That's what he's saying. Generating materials. Okay. I think you're an idiot. I think my steam generators are better. I mean, I was doing that to be farcical. If I showed you a steam generator in a room full of steam, you'd be like, yeah, it looks a bit like the clouds that are surrounding the sun. I mean, why not? It's better than it is. What justification have you got for that?
That's the easy. We did that in nuclear bomb explosions.
Oh, that's effectively all that is. That's what that is. Right.
Right, is it a nuclear bomb now? So, can we have a look at that? Let's have a look and see if a nuclear bomb looks like the sun. Maybe he's right about that.
Oh, right.
A fusion bomb. A fusion bomb is a little star.
Right.
A fusion bomb is a star? Why? Because he says so.
So that's 1940s.
Oh, God, that's old.
What, 1940s that they just decided that was the case?
This technology
is rubbish.
So before that, was it coal? Was it a coal-burning generator before that? I mean, what the hell? What was it before that? Let's have a little look. What have I got posted in Skype? Just bring it up for the audience. What's this?
It's whatever they call it to be, Nathan.
Why isn't it showing me Skype? There it is. There we go. What's this? This doesn't look much like a sun. Whatever I'm looking at on Skype. Looks like a massive machine. Very complex with multiple levels in an enormous space. Okay.
That's the Wizard of Oz.
This is a sun, is it? This is what a sun is. What's this in the middle of the sun? Is this the solid bit? What the hell? Okay.
No, I put the Wizard of Oz because it's Brian Cox behind the curtain to fooling everybody here. We're just reacting with your video to show all the lies.
Hold on. He said something about a nuclear bomb. Well, I mean, it's not quite a nuclear bomb, but either side of these Wizard of Oz, you've got these pyrotechnics going off. And that's what they look like, right? At a different scale. So,
no, I put the nuclear bomb picture after the Wizard of Oz.
Oh, my
pictures.
bad. Oh, yeah. This doesn't look anything like the sun either.
Yeah. Manu Boo says this ish is getting deep. I concur. Share the show with your friends.
Getting deep. Getting deep. Why do I always sometimes feel like always sometimes, feel that we were in La La Land. We were addressing the utterly absurd.
Right, but when a new person who hasn't been exposed to any of the anti-flat earthers or any of that rhetoric comes in, this bullshit is really deep when you initially come in.
Agreed.
I got
I
you.
understand
So
perfectly, Elijah.
you're saying for the hypothetical newbie we very rarely get to see of because they're watching Simon Dan right now, this would hit them like a sledgehammer.
Right.
Exactly.
That's why we're censored. That's why Simon Dan's getting the 150,000 views with whatever piece of shit incorrect assertions about his own model that he's got out currently.
So then what's the next step then? Because that shows my level of ignorance is fairly impressive.
Well, CERN, we're recreating the conditions that were present less than a billionth of a second after the universe began, which is
What? So we're going to get into a first law of thermodynamics violation now?
astonishingly hot.
Right.
I mean,
So
really
hotter than...
So Cox is about to tell you what happened in the past.
At the beginning of the universe.
At the beginning of the universe, Cox knows what happened. Right?
Right,
Why?
God.
He's going to be your God. He's going to describe you in a godlike way. Or he's at least the messenger. What is it? Muhammad, prophet. He's a prophet, isn't he?
It's a billionth of a second after the Big Bang. I mean,
A Big Bang? What's that? Everything being created from nothing? Oh, absolutely, without question, no. Definitely not. So you can't have a violation of the first law of thermodynamics, let's say law of nature, as a creator. That doesn't work. Quick shout out to Sebastian Tellio. He says, hi! Thank you for the super chat.
So nuclear explosion is, let's say...
Nuclear explosion. Okay, let's put it back on screen. It's this, is it? No, definitely not.
A minute after the Big Bang or something, which is a long time.
Right.
I mean, that 15 million degrees, the temperature in the centre of the sun, that's a doddle.
What's happening at...
How does he know it's that temperature at the centre of the sun? Has he got a thermometer there? Why? Because it's a nuclear explosion? No, it isn't. It doesn't even look remotely like a nuclear explosion. You know, so because what? You've got a temperature thermometer sensor on this, you can assert that the sun is that temperature? You've got no idea. Why are you Icarus? What's going on?
CERN, then? Because is that where are you effectively working there, or you do work there occasionally? I don't quite know what you're...
Yeah, so my academic involvement is on Atlas, which is one of the two big experiments there. Well, there are four.
Oh, back to them being experiments. Atlas? Is Atlas a naturally occurring phenomena? I don't actually know what he's talking about. Sounds like a rocket ship.
There, actually. Right. So when the machine starts working...
Machine? Sorry, isn't this science? Experiments? The establishment of cause and effect reasoning based on systematic experimentation after supposition of cause, that's your assumption, Robert, based on what you're observing to occur in nature and want to know the cause of. So step 1, observe something happening in nature. Step 2, suppose the cause of it. Step 3, vary your presumed cause to see if it causes it. What's he talking about? A machine starting up?
Which will hopefully be October.
Right.
Then they start taking data.
So it still hasn't actually properly worked yet?
No.
It hasn't worked, so you're studying the natural phenomena of a machine that doesn't even work?
Right. Because it went a bit squiddly, didn't it?
Yeah, it's only cost billions. We pissed with the other one like it doesn't matter. I mean, we haven't got a phenomenon. I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, we couldn't say anything. We could say it was working. It don't matter. Yeah.
Are you recording now, by the way? Is this part of the...
We weren't recording that one. We had a good old laugh about billions of dollars being spent on this shit that they could pay me to do.
Sorry. No,
yeah, who cares? It don't matter. Yeah, billions, yeah.
Top Atlas.
Yeah,
what it is.
I mean, it works.
Oh, sorry, was that one of mine? Was that Adam?
Yeah. So Atlas. Atlas is the largest general purpose particle detector experiment at the Large Hadron Collider. Its goals. Atlas is designed to record the high energy particle collisions of the LHC, which take place at a rate of over 1 billion interactions per second in the center of the detector. Purpose. You'll like this, good English. Atlas is one of the 2 general purpose detectors at the Large Hadron Collider. It investigates a wide range of physics, from the search for the Higgs boson to extra dimensions and particles that could make up dark matter.
Right, physics is the study of the physical. How can you be claiming to be performing a study of the physical, that's a phenomena in nature occurring that you want to know the cause of, if your actual endeavour is to find something that you haven't found yet? That isn't a study of the physical, it's a study of the imaginary.
Yep.
So if I dedicated billions of pounds to the search for unicorns, could I call that physics?
If you're going to insinuate that these things that you haven't discovered yet are possibly going to be physical.
Absolutely, unicorns. I mean, how much more physical do you want out of them? I mean, bloody hell. How unreasonable, Adam.
Where's me checkbook? Let me sponsor you.
Yeah, I agree. We should most assuredly throw a lot of money at this. Billions, easily. Just to get it to work. What? Phenomena? No. That'll be created in the machine when it's working.
Which is so last September we turned it on.
Right.
And we got beams going around both ways around the machine,
Right.
which means it works.
Right.
Right, which is a big step.
So it working is like travelling around in a circle. That's it working. So is that your phenomena? If that's it working, doing its thing, then that's the thing that you're studying. Now, it's about as far removed from natural phenomena as you can get. What the hell?
Yeah.
Because you never know that these things are going to work quite. And
What by work, you mean like do something, whether or not it'll do the thing it's supposed to do. In science, you're studying something that you've stumbled across in nature and want to know why it's happening. So it's not that you can get it to work, it's getting the effect to be induced by what you assume to cause it when you vary what you assume to cause it. It working is the thing that's occurring, like the sun coming up. I don't have to worry about whether or not that'll work tomorrow. If I'm studying it as a phenomena, I know it's going to happen. I need to figure out the cause of it. But in this instance, we may or may not get the phenomena to work, and when we do, it'll be like travelling in a circuit. That's it working. How is this something that you need to study and figure out the cause of? That would be science. Answer: it isn't. But you'll probably get some bullshit story about a nuclear generator at the centre of Venus. Once it's working, and we've got some phenomena to study.
until you turn them on. And then we had a problem with one join between two magnets.
Right.
Which was essentially a manufacturing problem.
So it's a technical issue. I mean, really, you could call it technology. But you're calling it science. So you're now going to describe the issues you're having, what, with the supposition of cause being varied and it not validating, i.e. it's not the cause of the effect you study in nature, that sort of problem that scientists face? You know, validating nulls and having to go back to the start and figure out what the hell caused the phenomena they're studying? No, you've got a technical issue. Because that's what this is. Technology, not science. But science is a much better magic word for convincing people of your bullshit when you talk about what's at the centre of the sun. So you better damn well call this science, because then people think it's empirical when you've given them a little story.
Or an installation problem. But it was a join between two wires that carry...
Oh, how very boring. No offence to any electricians out there. Oh. This science is quite exciting. Saves lives, develops the technology that you can bullshit about. That's what you get from scientific discovery. This sounds like some boring technical problem.
About, what is it? About 13,000 amps.
Wow.
Oh. You sound like some boring old fucker with a Tesla. Babbling on about the voltages in his boring car.
At full power.
Right.
At full power, I generate 514 kilowatts of power at the rear wheels in my Tesla. Really? Is this science? Oh, absolutely. Yes, it had a problem with the door not shutting. It took quite some time to fix. Science.
But they're like a piece of fuse wire. So the only reason...
So they had to connect the fuse box in my Tesla back up to the high voltage rail supply. Science.
It's not a big, thick, fat wire.
No, tiny wires.
Wow, this is so fucking boring.
And the only reason they can work is because we cool them down.
You know, we talk about science here. And when we do, I find it fascinating. In the pre-show, despite my utter ignorance in regards to the study of light, I had a bash at explaining answers to questions as I understood them when it came to the experiment known as the double slit. Fascinating discussion, 20-odd minutes of somebody wanting to expand their mind and go on the same journey of discovery that men have travelled to give us things like computers. Yeah? I advanced this boring-ass technology with its wires that don't bloody work when you're not even studying a phenomena. Yeah? We ended up with computers. That's something that actually developed out of scientific discovery. Something that actually helped mankind. What's CERN given us? If you find the fucking Higgs boson, what's it going to do for me? When you find this imaginary thing that's got nothing being validated in terms of cause and effect. You're not studying anything yet. You might be able to find the Higgs boson, and what are you going to do with it? When you find it? You're going to figure out the cause of it? You're going to start the scientific process if you find it?
Down to minus 271 degrees, which is colder than the universe.
My batteries get up to over 100 Fahrenheit almost immediately when I put on ludicrous mode. I'm assuming that's what burnt through the wire. Science. You boring old twat. Why are you boring everybody, Llewellyn and Cox, with this crap technology talk?
At the moment, the universe has got to about...
Right, well, why are we now talking about the universe? You just talked about high voltages. Is this somehow... Is the technical issue with your big machine somehow related to the universe?
Well, yeah, it's got to about a degree or so hotter than that as it's cooled down. It's in 13.7 billion years after the...
Sorry? Your technical issue somehow relates to something 13.7 billion years ago, does it? Why? That seems like a very ham-handed segue, Cox. How does this relate to something 13.7 billion years ago?
Big Bang, it's got to about 2.7 degrees.
Oh, I see. Because the temperature in your technical issue, Big Bang, millions and billions of years ago. That is absolutely garbage. Again, like I asked earlier from the panel, it's only when you break this stuff down to the point of absurdium, which is what we've just done. Technical issue on a Tesla, by equivalent, is now being compared to things billions of years ago. Anybody else find that utterly absurd? Non sequitur?
I do.
Above absolute zero.
Right.
And we run at 1.9, so it's cooler than space.
Cooler than space.
Nathan.
Yes.
Nathan, it's so good that you're doing these reaction videos, especially this one today, because he's just making stuff up. And because he's got this title, Brian Cox, professor, astrophysicist, whatever. This guy's like lapping it up as if everything he says is scientifically proven. And this is a good way to wake up people to the garbage that they're being fed 24/7. All you got to do is ask a few questions like you are, and you unveil everything. So good job.
At that temperature, there's no electrical resistance, so the wire can take all this huge current.
Right.
But if they heat up a bit or if something goes wrong, then suddenly you've got 13.
So he's sandwiching it in between. So he hasn't finished with his boring ass bullshit about his Tesla. He's boring everybody with it, but inserting billions of years ago in between is boring nonsense about wires and how they get hot.
1,000 amps going through something the size of a bit of fuse wire, and it doesn't last long.
It's probably not going to last that long.
So it...
Oh, God. My uncle's an electrician. No offence, Kevin, right, if you listen, I'm really sorry. But you are fucking boring. And this is just as boring.
I'm sorry. Nathan, boring is a trick because the more boring it is, the more scientific he sounds, so it must be true.
It sort of, a little spark happened, and one of our 20-odd ton magnets jumped about a foot to the left, and we squashed about another 50 of them. So we had to take them all out, and they've all been reconditioned and rebuilt.
So I had to take the batteries out because of this one little wire. Tesla said the whole battery pack had gone. So we had to take out the whole battery pack. Oh my God. Oh, God. How do your family cope with you?
They've gone back in, and they probably will come back online in September.
It's going to take at least 3 months to service the Tesla.
October, and then start taking data as soon as we can, hopefully before Christmas. So, and it's at that point because I'm more of a data person.
What? Not a scientist then? Yeah, like more of a mathematician bullshitter. Yeah, we know.
You just admitted it.
Analyze data, so the data will start coming in, and then
the data. What, the bit after the science, like the data, the validation of the cause of the effect you studied in nature, when actually you're looking for something that you don't even know exists. That would be the data that comes out the other end. You know, an administrator can deal with that. Yeah? The genius comes in supposing the correct cause of the effect that you're studying, validating it by experiment. That is genius. You're a glorified word processor if all you're doing is logging the fucking data. Because the data in science is the variation of a presumed cause to validate that which you're studying. Once you've validated it, that would be to say that you caused the effect with your supposition being varied. You can write that down. That's what you can do, Cox.
And then I'll start working again. There are thousands of particle accelerators. Most of them are in hospitals, actually. They're used to make isotopes, chemotherapy, and those things. So that's how you make radioactive substances for medical use. Or medical imaging.
As opposed to bullshitting about the start of the universe. So they've got a practical application and figuring out the start of the universe.
X-ray machines, those things. So the smaller ones are usually used for what we call light sources now. So there's a big one at Rutherford Appleton called Diamond, and its job is to make really small wavelength light. So you can.
So it makes light. There's a study of light. It developed into what we now understand to be the scientifically validated field of quantum mechanics. Would it be that the bullshit heliocentrism narrative needs to be propped up with billions of dollars of bullshit on this machine? Because of how light's been invalidated in Einstein's mechanics? Could that be it? You know, you've got bending geodesics in space-time, warping of light with a supposed speed. Could that be why we've got this bullshit machine, do you think?
Did he not just give a little disclaimer as to what the machine now is? So we spent this $1 billion, and what we use that machine now is as a light. Is that what he said? We use it as a light now.
Yeah. I mean, but what else is it?
A shade on the top.
Pictures of things or movies of things very quickly. So you can look at cells, you can look at biological processes in cells.
Okay, we can look at cells. Okay? Like with a microscope.
Are we doing biology now or physics? What's going on?
Well, a subset of physics is biology, but I know what you're saying, because what is this? Are we just, you know, as opposed to having a look at how things function in biology by looking at cells? Weren't we, a minute ago, figuring out things billions of years ago?
Yeah, and he was telling us how you load radioactive isotopes in medicine. So he's covered a bit of medicine, which is technology based, and that. But not seeing much science.
None.
Right. Even beginning to be able to make movies of viruses entering into cells.
Wow.
Sure, you got more to say on this, right, Adam?
So you use them for the light that gets emitted when you send electrons, let's say, around in a circle. But CERN, we don't care that it's a circle, really. In fact, it's annoying that it's a circle in a way. It'd be better if it was a straight line, because we don't.
I'm pausing for it. Go on.
What validation does annoying have in physics?
It's not part of the process. How frustrating is the only perceived, just to answer you as best as I can, The only perceived frustration in science would be that you validate your null. You've still achieved something, but the overall attempt is always to validate the alternative. So when you essentially fail to validate the alternative, yes, it's wonderful that you do validate the null, but that would be frustrating because then you've got to suppose a new cause and vary that to see if it causes it, right? That would be the only frustration. I know you weren't asking for an expansive answer. It's probably rhetorical, but there we go.
Well, it wasn't rhetorical.
I got a shameless plug.
What he found annoying was that after they'd spent billions of dollars building CERN round, it was a bit annoying because they'd preferred it straight.
Right. Go on, AI.
What?
Well, the main reason why they need it round is because they need to make circuits, and each circuit they get faster and faster because they didn't have enough money to make a long one to get to that speed. So lo and behold, one of our homeboys at CERN is actually on a campaign right now to raise money to build a new CERN on the moon. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Because they might find the Higgs boson up there. You never know. I mean, that seems reasonable.
Yeah, exactly. So donate now.
I agree.
Donate now.
I was just thinking that needs a lot more money thrown at it.
A lot more. Times are going to be tough. Austerity measures are needed.
Hit that super chat.
No, my campaign's different. No. My campaign is to solve the poo problem in Narnia. Equally valid, just as justified. Smash the super chat. Hit the PayPal link. We just should chuck money at that problem.
We don't want to send any light. We don't want to radiate light off because we lose energy.
Yes.
What we want to do is get these particles.
No, you don't want to radiate light because you lose energy. Isn't that what light is, though?
Protons, particles going as fast as you can, and then smash them together.
Right.
And then there you make these temperatures. Insane.
So you smash them together and they make high temperature. Okay. Is that the phenomena? Adam, maybe you can help me out. I'm not educated enough into what CERN is suggesting they do.
I think they might be researching new powerful microwave ovens or something.
Generates heat.
They learn how to generate heat.
In temperatures.
Right.
So you can observe the universe as it was.
Excuse me? Sorry. We're smashing stuff together, it's creating heat, but that's us observing the universe
as it was.
As it was.
How
Yes.
and why? Because if at the Big Bang everything's going away, nothing's hitting each other. So how, by getting two protons to collide, does that replicate the beginnings of the
It's
universe?
the energy
Because they said so.
So we're conflating the energy levels.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The whole premise is that when they reach certain energy levels, able to be put to particles, the particles will do things or change state beyond what they normally would at current energy levels, which is exactly why he needs his ring on the moon, bro. Because when you get on the moon, you can get higher energy levels, and then you can find out new truths.
Just have to get past that second law of thermodynamics violation, sky vacuum, and that's going to take absolute fortune, I'm telling you.
Right.
A billionth of a second.
Exactly.
Again. And that's because it's simpler. For no particular reason why it should be, but it turns out it is. As you go back in time and everything gets hotter.
As you go back in time? What? When are you going back in time? You're not going back in time, Dumbo. What do you think you are? Mickey Fox? You're not going back in time, Dumbo. When you go back in time isn't a statement I should ever hear anybody say if they're sane.
And hotter, everything gets simpler.
Right.
So all this.
Am I going nuts? Is this like 12 Monkeys description? When you went back to a simpler time? What are you talking about?
Complexity you see in the world. Things like you and me, Toyota Priuses.
Yes.
So when you go back in time, you see the complexity in things like you and me and this Prius.
They're properties of an old and cold universe. So they're.
You and him and the Prius are elements of an old, cold universe. Sorry, somebody get this guy committed. If you were in the pub jabbering to a guy with quite a yellow beard and a pipe and he said that sentence to you, you would suggest he got committed.
Right.
In all this structure and mess has crystallized out in a way.
Right.
So if you want to see the underlying simplicity, which is there, for maybe surprising, may not be. It's not, but it certainly is true that it's.
Where is where? What is certainly true? You described him and yourself sat in a Prius. This is so non sequitur. It's just baffling.
Very simple.
Yeah.
Then you go back and you photograph those conditions, basically.
You go back and you photograph them. Mickey J. Fox with a fucking Polaroid now.
Right. You observe the laws of physics as they were.
As they were, right.
You went back and observed the laws of physics. Now I'm going to assume you mean laws of nature. The physical. The descriptions of the physical. Gas expands in all directions. It doesn't form sphere shapes in atmosphere. It doesn't condense to make heavy elements to then explode out in line with entropic law, dispersing to fill the available volume, to then coalesce to make us into the rocks that are our cousins. All of that is bollocks. Every last bit of it. And every word that Cox just said, and this tosser, who I've now lost a lot of respect for, Robert Llewellyn, has nodded along to every stupid word of it.
Right.
When they were simple.
Right. What? Did you want to paraphrase back to him what he just said about you and him sitting in a Prius and going back in time to take pictures of stuff?
So it's the best way we found of doing...
Best way I found to go back and take Polaroids? You didn't describe doing anything. You just said this is the best way. What is? Could you be any more vague and non-specific? Oh, maybe it's the bullshit you just talked about smashing lights together. That was going back in time, of course. Other than it wasn't.
Physics, really, at that level. I mean, physics is just understanding the forces of nature and the building blocks of nature.
Yes.
Understanding them or explaining them. Physics is giving you explanations.
The way you do that is build things like CERN.
No. The way you do that is you observe natural phenomena. That's things in the physical, in nature. And you say, I wonder what caused that. And then you suppose what you think causes it. An assumption, Robert, of the cause of the effect you're observing in nature. Now, at that point, you've already got half a hypothesis. You've got your full alternative. If A, my supposition of cause, then B, the effect I'm studying in nature. The other half being if A, my supposition of cause, then not B, the phenomena being studied in nature. The effect. In other words, you vary it and it doesn't cause it. That's a null. When you vary A to see if it causes B, that's an experiment. That's what physics is. Not building CERN and boring people with how it doesn't quite work properly and then comparing that to going back and taking pictures in the past.
So it's not because you want to find another particle or you want to just bang things together for a laugh.
It's not because of what we're doing at CERN. It's not because of those things you've used to juxtapose with time travel. It's not because of precisely what you're doing at CERN, then.
Yeah.
Because physics has gone that way.
Yes.
Right?
So not because of CERN, but because physics has gone that way. Now, physics is the study of the physical, the study being the establishment of cause and effect relationships based on natural phenomena with systematic experimentation based on a hypothesis, otherwise known as the scientific method. Something you wouldn't have a clue about, Cox.
The direct line for Newton and Maxwell understanding electricity and magnetism and understanding the nuclear forces.
Right.
Are those scientifically validated? Or are they just descriptions of effects? Those are just descriptions, more like natural laws. Descriptions of things that happen. As opposed to scientifically validated? Cause and effect reasoning based on hypotheses? That's science. Describing phenomena isn't that. It's just descriptions. It's not explanations.
We've been led to this point where we need something that's 27 kilometres in circumference and 600 metres below the ground and a 135 megawatt power consumption.
We've got to this point where we've got a really boring description of something electric like a Tesla that we can bore the shit out of you with, baffle you with, and then tell you that it's a time-travelling machine for us to go back and take Polaroids with. After describing you and me sat in a Prius.
So has he got his own power station?
No, we use a French grid, so we're
I like to plug mine into a high-capacity charger. It's 80% faster than plugging it into the normal brain supply. Science.
Beautifully carbon neutral because it's all nuclear.
It's completely carbon neutral, my Tesla. I only get energy from wind turbines. You are so boring.
Right, so that's fine. So it's the Green
I
Party
like
should
the
have
idea
won.
that you're doing something that could potentially blow up everything. But you make a good point that don't worry, we're carbon neutral. It's he is. Yeah, he's the office nerd, isn't he?
That's what they've done. They've taken some jumped up administrator and told him he's a scientist while they coax him from the sidelines.
But what's he told us so far? There's
You really want me to summarise it? I can.
Significance.
You want me to? I can summarise it. I unfortunately dedicate this shit to memory while we're live. So if you want me to, I will. But it's making me twitch. I don't want to. I could summarise the shit that he's laid down. I've been doing it as we go along.
Yeah, but let's not pass that over for a second. Keep in mind that all these ventures that they're doing into these greater energy potentials, right? A lot of this concept began with the atomic bomb race, right? With what was that called? What was that secret project called? Anyway, the secret project.
Manhattan Project.
Yeah, the Manhattan Project, right. So one of the premises based in that was, well, we need to get this weapon before the enemies, right? Because the enemies are working on it as well. But simultaneously, one of the premises was, look, we're getting to the level of destroying the fabric of reality on a fundamental level, disjointing connections that we really shouldn't be toying with. And we really don't know what's going to happen. And the report that they gave to the president was, we're not 100% sure that if we do this, we're not going to blow up the entire atmosphere. Because of the chain. Right? And so you have this fear on people's minds. It's like, well, we totally need to have this, but it might blow us all up too. And it just adds to that drama.
Yep.
The same with this CERN thing. It's like, oh man, we need these answers, bro. We need these answers so hard, but it might kill us all.
Yeah. It's always back to the same marketing strategies. Always, is it Bernays that originally developed all this shit? Freud's nephew or whatever he is. It's basically just a sales strategy. And in this case, it's the death cell. You're hardwired to react to this shit. And they've known it forever. How to manipulate you, what buttons to press. They know you like boobies, if you're a guy. Or maybe a girl. We're in modern times after all. But in my example, they know you like sex. Why? Because you're bloody hardwired to do it, that's why. It's base instinct. They know you don't want to die. Yeah? Hardwired into every fibre of your being. Don't want to get hit by that bus. This might be a dangerous decision. That's all you do. All day is all your body's processing. Don't die. Well, I like the look of that lady. Because that's what your brain does. You don't have to like it. You don't have to accept it. It's just a fact. That's what we do. All animals do it. Right, otherwise we wouldn't be here. But they work on that. They manipulate that. Let's put the sex cell to one side for a second and focus on the death cell, which they've been using for centuries to sell you cigarettes and alcohol and various other things that are very bad for you. Well, they can sell you CERN with it too, the death cell. You're hardwired to respond to this stuff, and you will, especially if it's life-threatening. Fear is the best manipulation they have. It's the best form of control there is. Fear. I think it's in a Matrix section.
In there, they
actually
have a grander scale.
I was just going to say there's a really good speech from, I think it's Agent Smith in the second Matrix, when he's trying to explain this to Neo about everything he does is driven by fear. Now, it's not strictly true, because it's obviously part of the other flip side of the story is his relationship directly, the love story with the other character, the female lead. But in this instance, obviously, the bad character is going to be focused on this aspect that we're discussing, the death cell. It's fear that drives you. And it couldn't be more true. They know it, and that's what they're using here. Anyway, I've waffled on too much. Sorry, AI, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying they extrapolate this on a universal scale and a universal time scale, which is, ultimately whatever we decide to achieve here on Earth, in their worldview, we're going to face extinction via the destruction of our star, where ultimately our star consumes us and destroys us, and no matter what we've achieved here is lost to eternity. And so in their worldview, there's that fate for humanity, and somehow they have to escape that fate. Now, there's this thing known as the Kardashev scale, which is essentially a progress scale of civilization in the heliocentric expanding cosmology worldview, where we're not even a 1 on the scale, because we haven't been able to tap into the energy of our whole planet. The next metric on the scale is being able to tap into the energy of our star. The next level is being able to tap into the energy of our galaxy, right? And so you need all of these fancy woo-woo type technologies like CERN to even posit the idea that one day we'll achieve something greater than, Teslas and cars and stuff like that. It's like eventually we'll have giant space stations and interdimensional teleportation and sucking energy from a star like a vacuum cleaner and using it to power our iPod, 2000s. So it's all wrapped in, like you said, to this existence, which is progression, love, procreation, all of that, and death. It's one big circle of life and death that they're just playing on, just like many, many world religions do.
Yeah, it's incredibly
So that
clever.
being said, it's very elegant. It's very elegant the way they do it.
Yeah, incredibly. And you need puppets and patsies. That's what we've got here. Cox has been set loose at this point. He's been trained. He's not got the director next to him telling him how he should do this. By equivalent, that's me with QE on the early shows, still sat on the panel. Don't get me wrong, QE still joins. He's not here at the moment. But when he was first educating my dumbass in all of this stuff that I can now seem like I'm clever with, he still sat there. He is actually still sat there, because occasionally, right, I'll say something wrong, and he'll put it through on Skype, subtly. Now, typically, he's like, I don't know if he was annoyed about this, but he said, whenever I do that, it's only for you to read. You don't have to read it out. Right, no, if I'm wrong, I'll just read it out. The audience will benefit if I've disseminated something incorrect. It's almost like you want to make a retraction and a correction almost as soon as possible. You don't want to go forward with incorrect information. If you don't know, you don't know. Everyone makes mistakes, right? So when he's correcting me in the background, that's the equivalent of the director sat next to Cox, getting him to shill the right information in the right way it needs to be spun. But at this point, with Llewellyn, who's another semi-celebrity in this instance, he's set loose. He doesn't need any assistance to bullshit his way through CERN and give the death cell the way it's been positioned, because that's what it is. He's just got to talk about it for it to be what it is. What I'm saying by that is he's not Bernaysian in terms of his approach to this. He's just, he's bullshittium in terms of he's just been indoctrinated with the stuff that he needs to disseminate to the public as a pretty face. And he's doing a good job of it. So he's not like sitting there going, oh, how can I incorporate the death cell into my Bernaysian sales pitch for the heliocentric Big Bang, and how CERN is actually showing us the Big Bang in progress when we went back and took a Polaroid of it. He's not doing that in how I've broken it down and how AI's broken it down and how Adam's broken it down. He's just doing the do. This is just rhetoric. It's just going through the motions at this point. Doesn't change what it is. In other words, he's innocent in a way. Very innocent looking. That's probably why.
That's why Llewellyn's very useful here and very different to the director. The directors probably would be picking him up on this, because a lot of it isn't really properly constructed sentences even. It's just him rambling a lot, but he's fine in it because he's just got this nodding dog next to him, that even if he makes a nonsensical sentence, doesn't matter, because he's just going to be given platitudes and agreed with. So,
go on.
Do you get my point? This is him, just as you said, just totally let loose with no correction. Which is why I think it is. I mean, if you're saying you're keeping up with this and he's made a point yet, I'm impressed.
He hasn't made a point, no. But I could go through, when I say I could summarise it, I could summarise how he's describing the boring nature of the technical issues with the non-phenomena of CERN, that he studies the data that gets chucked out when it's working, and how that's comparable to an example of them in time, because they're sat in a technological wonder known as a Prius, and how that is actually the equivalent of them going back in time and taking a Polaroid of the Big Bang. That's so far what he's done what he's described in summary, to the best of my ability. Did you see a point in there?
No,
Definitely not.
See, I'm waiting. All I've got so far is it's a bit like the ISS. They've tried to make out this multi-billion-dollar thing has got some use. So he's tried to mention like medical uses that they've had before CERN anyway. It's a bit like space lettuce, isn't it? What have we learned in space? Oh, we can make Velcro. Do you know what I mean? That he's trying to justify it, but realistically, he's not said anything they've actually done. They've not even got the thing bloody working.
And would nuclear fusion remove, say, some of the slightly ill-informed fears of nuclear waste? And I mean,
now we're going to discuss power stations, are we? Because his example of it, Llewellyn, was to say that that's what the sun is. But you're going to discuss the power stations. Does the sun produce nuclear waste to make it comparable? Anybody? How much nuclear waste does the sun produce? Oh no, that's the fusion reaction that creates the gold. It just shits it out. Gold, that is. Not waste. It's not waste. It's what makes you making the star your cousin. Because it's shitting out what creates life. It's not waste.
Isn't that a
it's gold.
reaction?
Say again?
Isn't that a fusion reaction instead of fission?
Fusion, I always confuse them.
Well, fusion supposedly like the material fusing into something bigger. That's how basically hydrogen turns into gold.
Yeah, that's
right?
what
In
he's
the
describing.
subplane.
Yes, I thought so.
Fission is the other opposite. So it breaks down. Like actual material, micromaterial electrons are lost, and so it transforms into another material. So
yeah,
it's
and that's the
opposite.
waste, and the heat byproduct's going to turn a turbine. Yeah, he's talking about something that's non sequitur in response. We'll see how Cox cokes, because he might just get him back on track and say, no, the sun isn't quite like that. It's only a vague comparison that doesn't work. We'll see.
I mean, does it?
Yeah.
Right.
It's in principle completely clean. So you don't, nothing happens at all. There's no waste products at all, basically.
Right. Yeah.
Actually, at CERN, one of the things.
What? No waste products at all? What?
That's been looked at is using neutron beams. So if you find neutrons into something.
There was a heavy edit there, by the way. You can't see it in the server, but that was a cut. That was the point they cut from camera to camera. So normally, as an audience member, you're never going to pick up on this. Well, I wouldn't either if I hadn't learned how to edit in college. But when they switch camera like that, it's so that they can chunk out a bit. So presumably, he just waffled on with a load of bollocks based on the look on Llewellyn's face just before they cut.
Then it changes it. It makes it radioactive. But it can also take things like plutonium that have hugely long half-lives that stick around for tens of thousands of years.
Sorry, I'm just going through a slightly orangey, slightly orangey light.
And it can convert them into.
Hold on. Again, he sort of skirts the borders of describing actual entropic effects, doesn't he? It's back to this. I've got somebody at my door. Can you guys talk amongst yourselves for 10 seconds? It's just going to be for one of my neighbours. It'll be a parcel.
I don't know what he's talking about, but he knows a way to turn it into non-poisonous material or something. Like, what is he talking about? Sounds like a bunch of science fiction blabbering.
What he's doing. Adam.
Yes, sir.
Adam, do you think he's just playing a card for the people with the carbon footprint? You know, don't leave a carbon footprint. It sounds so political right now.
Well, I don't know. I don't know particularly what he's on about. He seemed to be talking about how the sun is working, and then he's jumped to CERN and stuff. I mean, that made sense. There aren't really waste products in the sun, are they? It's not like So that kind of made sense what he was saying there. But then I don't know what he's jumped to, because that's part of the cut. Because he
Well,
obviously
what
just
about
rambled.
solar flares? Isn't that supposed to be a waste product?
No,
No, that's just an
I think he's trying to justify.
It's been
But it
convoluted
is
in the
within
edit.
heliocentrism.
I think
it does.
The reason for the stark sort of jump is because of the edit. Just suddenly, it's like, not only is he non sequitur in his complete nonsense ramblings, now the editor's tried to get it back on some sort of form and track. So we're onto a different subject now. So it's like, why did you jump to CERN? Well, because that was an edit.
Nathan.
But it leaves things kind of incomplete, because now I'm wondering, like, what the hell was he talking about? Because it's no longer clarified.
Who is it that said earlier? That's
welcome to the
advantageous,
club.
though, isn't it? Beneficial if he's not only boring, but it all seems highly technical.
Yes, but even with all that, I'm watching Neil deGrasse Tyson, Bill Nye, and all the rest of them segue away to this global warming. And so here, Cox is talking about how CERN isn't going to be guilty of a carbon footprint. I mean, it's so subtle. You just have to know where this is all leading to.
There's things that decay away very quickly.
Right.
So you can, if you want, take nuclear waste, fire neutron beams at it, and get rid of it.
Right.
If you feel like it.
Right.
It's
What?
just quite expensive.
Fire neutron beams on it and neutralize it.
Maybe.
Okay.
That might be true.
Yeah.
But so what?
What's a neutron beam?
So what? What's this got to do with...
neutrons, not neutron beam.
Let's not major on the minors, right? Before we get into this, which may or may not be true. It's like saying, really? The wire in your Tesla got really hot and you had to send the battery? Who cares? How does this relate to going back in time and taking Polaroids of the Big Bang?
It's not.
It's just about
talking
job
about dealing with
security.
nuclear waste.
Yeah.
He's jumped to now.
Yep. So let's not major on this minor. We'll just point out it's non sequitur.
Yeah. So it's cheaper to bury it.
Yes.
But if you really don't want to bury it, then you can get rid of it if you want.
Right.
Pause it and break this sub so I don't get copyrights.
He's a proper nerd, isn't he? He's like, and I basically, we like to do recycling at our house.
Yes. It was in for 3 months. They fixed the wire. They replaced the batteries. They told me how scientifically validated it had been when they put it on the dyno.
But I made sure I put the paper in the paper bin, recycled it, and all scooped up all the plastic for that to go to the right depot.
Guys, that's a financial claim for the future.
Yep.
With the advent of fossil fuels being banned because of carbon, a lot of people are going to have to switch to electricity. Any form of electricity production that they have is insufficient except nuclear. So we have to shift to nuclear. So what he's doing is saying CERN has prolonged job security because we can use it as an excuse to clean up the nuclear waste that the nuclear plants create. Because right now he says they do bury it. I also know that from personal experience that they actually store it above ground near the facilities after they destroy the power. And they spend millions upon millions of dollars just guarding the old rods. Now you can just ship them to CERN. CERN will vaporize them for you for the low price of $1 billion a pop or whatever the heck they charge. Sounds like a good sell to me.
Yeah, but next thing you know, you've got the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Splinter and, you know...
Give me a
that
brief...
far in. That's how it happens.
It is.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It happens at CERN, does it?
Because you've never seen them.
I'd rather have people fear me than love me. Fear lasts longer.
I don't know, man. What is this supposedly real? Firing neutrons? Like, what is even a neutron? Actually, not presupposedly, but actually. And how do you fire it? And how many neutrons would you have to fire at one old powering rod?
You don't. It's a big book.
Okay,
that
Arwin,
story.
just
Arwin,
one more
you know
time,
it.
because Arwin's really not picking up what I'm putting down. Okay, there's a guy telling us about his Tesla, and he's talking about how the energy that's used to power his Tesla is renewable. And because of the renewable energy and the Tesla and the technical issues, he can go back in time in the Tesla and take photos of the Big Bang at the beginning of time, Arwin. Now, do we A, discuss just how green is the electricity for the Tesla, or do we question its ability to go back in time to take Polaroids?
Well, the environmentally
the prior.
It's a very irrelevant subject in today's age.
Thank you, Arvin. You're
it's a good distraction.
Such a valued member of the team.
Step-by-step thing of how you got into it.
Nonsense statement is obviously just like, why? I don't even think people really want to know an answer to that because they just, at face value, take it as complete nonsense. Because, of course, it is.
Okay.
Because I mean, you've obviously got a very passionate group of followers. That I was amazed at the response on Twitter of how many. I mean, the detailed knowledge of your life is quite mildly alarming. You presumably were.
I've got nothing to say about his being a sycophant, but got to break it up somehow.
Quite bright at school, I would guess.
Yeah.
Oh God,
it's such a poor timing.
Yeah.
Right. Sycophantism is so terrible when the person is actually acting like a complete moron.
Well,
That's so petty.
We just now got to endure Robert Llewellyn blowing smoke up Cox's ass for a few minutes. Go on, Tenth.
Well, hang on. What makes you think he's acting as a moron?
Well, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt that he might have slightly brighter moments.
Who are we talking about? You talking about Robert Llewellyn or Prof. Cox?
Well,
talking about Cox.
Both of them.
I mean, he said to examine the data. What's coming out of his mouth?
Okay, tell me when you're finished.
He said he's a data guy. So what's? Well, I got cut off. So I'm saying Cox said he's a data guy. So stuff coming out of his mouth is data to me, and he's a moron.
Yes.
Space, right? So all I knew, and I didn't know whether it was. I was born in '68, so I watched the Apollo moon landings. Apparently, right. My dad.
What are you, a one? Okay.
Apollo moon landings.
And the first thing I remember really is the Apollo Soyuz link up in '75.
Yes.
Why did he say apparently?
Because he can't remember it. What he's saying is, at one, when he sat on his dad's lap, he's informed that he was sat watching the moon landing with his dad. So apparently, as in, I can't remember it, but I was sat with my dad. I'm reliably informed. That's what I think he means.
Wow.
Well, there's no big deal there.
A vague recollection of a memory means that he's super brilliant, even though he literally doesn't remember.
He's not suggesting he is.
That's like, hold on. That's like me saying I sat on my mother's lap while the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan. That's why I love the Beatles today.
I was just misreading it. I was thinking like he was being apparently, if the moon landings ever happened.
No.
But it's not. That makes a lot more sense what you said now. Yeah.
If it happened on TV when he was one or not, he can't remember. That's what he meant.
For me, so there was Star Wars and Star Trek. Course, I didn't know the difference.
He summarises what we do. They do the work for us half the time. So when we're saying, yeah, you softened up with the notions of space with all the sci-fi of space, these guys just summarise it too. So not as an astrophysicist, I was presented with all this really exceptional evidence of the sky vacuum and of space. I was apparently watching the moon landing. I don't really know, but I did see Star Wars and Star Trek. This is a useless
difference at all. It was just want to do that. Astronomy, space. What was it?
You know what I saw? I saw him in space. That's what I saw. I saw Robert Llewellyn in the sky vacuum on the red dwarf with the last human being alive and a hologram of his bunkmate. That's what I saw. And a creature that evolved over millions of years from the ship's cat into a humanoid-like character called Cat. So that's what I saw. This guy. So while Cox might have loved Star Wars because he's a child of the 70s, I was a child of the 80s and I loved Red Dwarf.
I love it too. And how did the show end?
The Red Dwarf show?
Yeah.
Depends where you consider the end to be, because they kind of lost one of the writers. Well, they flipped between two writers on the last 3 series, and they kind of weren't the same. But in my opinion, the series ended with both writers with it as it was, at the point that they got a time drive and a faster than light drive, so they could basically go anywhere and any when in history. And at some point, they lost the ability to have the faster than light drive work. So they went back into a period of time that they knew their past selves were there, or future selves, I should say. Sorry, they went to a point in time that they knew their future selves would be, so that they could get the parts working on their craft. And when the present timeline see the future timeline of themselves and what they've become, they decide that they don't want to have that to be the future. They've turned into like Hitlers, power greedy, evil monsters. So they just try. So one of the characters, the most Weasley character, the hologram character, who's at this point got a physical body, goes and blasts the time drive, eliminating their future characters. Because the future characters, when they find out that they won't give them the part, say, well, we'll kill you then. We'd rather not exist at all, so we'll just shoot our past selves so that we don't have to exist. In other words, it's a bit of a stalemate. But that was where they sort of ceased the timeline by destroying it. And that was, for me, a natural end to the show. But then they had another one afterwards, and there was nanobots that remade the ship that had already been lost. But there we go. It did continue.
You got to admit, it makes great movies, man.
So all from all of that plot, all of that has come from a brief history in time. That's where all of it came from. That entire plot.
Yeah. Just sounds like what they're talking about. It's a fantasy world.
Right.
It is. I just said that. Hold on.
Right
I just repeat myself. Hold on. No one heard me. That entire premise, the plot, the narrative, the lot, with the exception of the human interaction, is basically lifted directly from a brief history. Is it of time? Yeah, a brief history of time. That's where all of it comes from. Black holes, wormholes, white holes, time dilation. All of it is current rhetoric. And they've lifted it directly from the books of the rhetoric to get it accurate. The writers, that is.
Right. But within the towards the end, they had a Freudian slip kind of thing, which was intentional, but also non-intentional, because what they ended up finding out is that this entire drama that was just outlined by Nathan was indeed actually, once they realized this, a fantasy being played out. They were just characters in a TV show.
No, that was much earlier on.
In real life, they're characters in a TV show, right?
That was also them
right. So how the series ended?
Well, no, that's also a different exploration of a different concept from a brief history of time, which is parallel dimensions in terms of them waking up in a different place. So as part of a simulation, right? You're talking about when the episode's called Back to Reality, and they all get into an encounter with something called the despair squid, which squirts them, and they all then hallucinate together that they've woken up in a computer simulation. So the despair squid kills them in their hallucination, and they wake up after being killed in a video game, looking back at the simulation pods that have been lying in for the last year and a half. So they sort of get up and go, oh, what's happened? Well, what's really happening is they've been suffering a group hallucination. And the whole point of the hallucination is to get them to kill themselves. That's why it's called the despair squid. Yeah. But in their hallucination, they dream that they're all waking up after being just playing a game that's called Red Dwarf.
Right, but I'm speaking of the one where they went to the actual studio. They went to the studio, like they woke up in the bodies of the actors.
That's the feature length one. They come out of the TV screen in the feature length one.
Yeah,
that came a series after when the writers had split up. Yes, again, I don't consider that to be part of the true series of Red Dwarf, which had its natural end with the time machine being destroyed. But there we go.
Right, but even you saying that is so interesting, because within the story isn't real. They're just actors. But then you say, no, this version of the fictional story is more true than that version of the fictional story. Isn't that interesting how when you have a fictional story, how people defend the truth of the fiction? And I was just drawing that parallel to the heliocentric model that we're presented with today, just like Brian Cox's story about the past and the future and all of these things.
Yep.
It's such a
It's
fictional
because of the
story.
consistency.
He's got a great point. Let him end. Everyone shut up. The reason you want to react is because what he's saying is good. Just let him say it. That's an excellent point. Go ahead.
Well, that is the point. It's like in a fictional universe, differential fictions will evolve because it's not true. So it has, natural errors that will permutate when it has different writers or different presenters. For example, you have the heliocentric priest saying one thing, the anti-flat earther saying another thing, Brian Cox saying another thing. So you have varying fictions within the fictions, and each person will pick the part of the fiction that they like best to defend. And we see that play out in reality. It's very, very interesting. And, art imitates life. There you go.
Absolutely. When we're arguing about whether or not the single writer rather than the pair of them is canon, that's translatable into people arguing about an anti-flat earth rhetoric versus a globe rhetoric and whether or not it's reality. Go ahead, Arwin.
No, I made my point, I think.
Yeah, but we didn't hear it
good point.
because you were talking it through me stopping you. Go ahead.
I don't remember what it was.
Oh, that's my fault. I'm sorry. I just wanted to hear the end of AI's point because it was such a great parallel. Yeah, what you are acceptably allowed to discuss and debate in terms of things being canon in a fictional story that you followed that's had a change of writer and cast, right? Oh, I'd accept that. You totally different cast, different writer. It's definitely not the same. It's like,
right.
Well, I don't accept that.
When I
Earth turning underneath. You and your reference frames are ruined. It's like you're arguing about reality. Hello? Well, we can debate this, can we?
Damn heretic.
I remember what I was going to say. Right? So, fiction. It's fiction. It's not real. But why do we defend it, or why do we exclude parts of it versus the rest? Well, it's because for human beings, their stories that are fictional, and in their mind, in their dreams, they want them to be consistent, right? One dream has to be consistent, not unstable, not completely different at the beginning to the end, because that's not a pleasant memory. You want the whole thing to be consistent. So if it then destabilizes for some reason, or the writing gets all bad, well, people then have the tendency to basically, in their mind, almost like a Mandela effect, like exclude it, right? I mean, this happens in so many series that the hardcore fans just end up saying like, oh, no, not that one. That episode doesn't belong here because that one sucked. But the rest is perfect. Because of that, the consistency.
Yeah, like Star Wars.
Okay, so on that note, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either, Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So a massive thank you to all of you. Smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, supported the Pooh in Narnia campaign via PayPal and all that good stuff. Another massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panels. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on a Premiering stream, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day! Got the plans for the Death Star. He was killed in Rogue One.
Okay.
What's the name of that? Rogue One? Rogue
Yeah,
Two?
that was the Rogue. That was like the first movie they did outside of the prequels.
Right, and this is the show that's led to Rogue. Really good.
The equivalent of SC Montreal going, yeah, you can do all sorts with a wheel. You get such a beautiful example from AI, and you want to focus on the actual continuity errors that you found within the example. that's compared to people doing that with reality. But you're going to go to Star Wars after that.
We were talking
That's
about it
why
because
we
you ended
do.
the show.
That's what we do.
got what AI
Consistency.
said.
Yeah, take it off on the tangent by way of the example. He's making a point.
I mean, it's
he's
kind of like when we first really started talking about some of that back in the day, where we had that retroactive continuity concept, where Arwen was talking about that about something, and I was bringing it up in popular culture about how that did happen with the new Star Wars, where they had the faster than light drive shoot through other ships, and everybody was in a tizzy because they're like, wait a minute, if this is true, how come we didn't do this throughout all the other Star Wars episodes and just defeat the Empire instantly?
Okay, everyone close your ears for a second. Just pretend you're not hearing this. Arwen, in a second, I want you to say, quote, "What's his name?" End quote. Can you do that? Right, everyone, open your ears, pretend you didn't hear that. Right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to blip, 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 blip. We're just going to go back in time. I'm just blip, blip, inputting the coordinates. Blip, 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 blip.
What's his name?
Sorry, what was that, Arwen?
What's his name?
It was Slick James Johnson.
Ah, okay. I remember that.
Yeah, remember that guy? Good job we can all remember his name. We're back in the present. Who was it that was getting really bugged because we couldn't remember the name of Slick James Johnson, the quote-unquote pimp that never accepted...
Woman beater.
I think it was actually AI. Remember you were saying that Slick James Johnson's approach to never accepting anything that was based on anything that had a belief in it?
Yep.
Yeah.
We couldn't remember his name.
believe.
Then someone came in with a parody of his name in one of the chats. It's like it was Slick James Manson or something like that. Slick James Manson. I was like, that was it. Slick James Johnson.
I was a listener at the time, and 10th Man handed him his ass.
Again, yeah, but at the time AI's point was that he actually had it was a useful tool. If you adhered to it religiously, well, that's not a good word. If you adhered to it consistently, you could actually get people over a barrel quite often in terms of the amount of things that you accept on faith and belief. You just haven't assessed them yet, and he's there and in a pinch to point that out to you.
Yep.
Do we want to do a bit?
Most people.
Go on, sorry, AI.
I was saying most people don't ever face an opponent like that in their life that won't let them make an assertion without, challenging all the underlying premises. Be like, wait a minute, how do you know what you're saying?
Yeah, it worked really well. Right, should we do a bit more Cox?
Shout out to Slick James Johnson. I hope you've corrected your pimping ways.
I doubt it. So too. I liked him.
I don't think he was a pimp when he was talking to us. Oh, ways. No, you did qualify it. My bad.
He was literally bragging about it.
It was just the way he spoke to women.
I just got back.
Again, 10th?
I got the last part of that, but Slick had lots of beliefs. He was on a show recorded, and I listened to that show. And when he came on our show, I brought it up. He believed he can murder himself if he murdered himself if he killed somebody else.
Yeah.
Wow, very morbid.
So that's a belief.
Yeah, and I watched Ebon Kim, another character from the past, and him have a conversation where he did speak about saying those things. Prior to running into anti-flat earthers, he was willing to say he had beliefs. Basically, what I could gather from the conversation he was having with Eben Kim, after that conversation that you heard, he changed the way he went about conversation. You can agree or disagree with his tactics, point out that, well, it's a blatant lie, you saying you don't have beliefs, but I understand why he did it.
But did Ebon Kin not have beliefs then? Was he a similar vein?
Oh God, that
No,
guy.
no. Eben Kim was he was another guy that
I know he is.
had to get kicked off the show. Yeah,
He was most annoying.
he was just given a platform late night for flat earthers to speak. He didn't himself not have beliefs.
He wasn't about that. He was just about atheism, and
he was annoying.
And playing premiering like the recording of your show before you had.
That's why he got banned.
Recording it secretly.
Yeah, that's why he got banned.
Yeah, well, it was Ebon who contacted me and said, "Oh, you're a Christian. Would you come and do a show?" And I said, "Sure." So I went on his channel. If it's still up, you'll find me being interviewed by Ebon. And I did a show, and I disagreed with him when it came to Christian canon, as we like to say. And he was all over the place, looking at all religions and everything else. He just wanted to see what Christianity from a Christian point of view was. So that's why he had me on the show. So I had no problem. I went on the show, did it. And that's where I scrolled and saw that he had interviewed Slick. So I said, I wonder what Slick said on the show. And that's the show I listened to. And that's when I came back. And when Slick came back on your show, like a few days later,
You handed him his ass.
I said, Slick, I got you on record. Well, I handed him his own words.
Yeah, well, I tried to give additional information. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure Ebon and Slick are doing well. Maybe Slick's returned to his pimping ways, and last I saw from him.
You remember what? Sorry, you remember what his last show was?
The last show from Ebon Kim was him explaining his transitioning.
The last show Slick James was here. The last show he was here.
Nah, I can't remember.
Randy sniped him, and he was laughing about it, and that was it. I know, because I was an avid listener, and I couldn't wait. It was a Friday, and I couldn't wait till Monday for Slick to get into him, and he never came back again. He popped in later on, but yeah, that was the last time he had any role in the flat Earth debate.
Fair enough. Are we done with Cox?
This show's been going forever.
This show?
Yes. Continue, Brian Cox.
Yeah. Oh, really? 2 hours, 13 minutes? You mean the flat Earth debate's been going forever?
Yeah. Just look at all these extensive memories that we all have, even. And it's like, oh yeah, that happened. Oh yeah, that was months.
That doesn't constitute.
Oh, another
forever.
thing happened. Oh wait, that was months too. And it's like, man, we've been at it for such a long time. It's incredible.
What else? Want to add something before I start playing and they get their words in after I do?
Yeah. Did you see the post I put up in Master D on because you released SE Montreal's
CERN 666
video
thing.
today? No, not that one. I'll get it for you.
CERN, the opening of the abyss.
Nope. It's
Aliens?
right after your. It's right after you posted your link.
Oh, okay.
For today's show.
Wow, there's been a lot of memeing going on. Bloody hell. Is this what you guys do when I'm waffling on? SC Montreal came to FED a while back. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. You want to read it since my voice is not good?
Sure. SC came to FED a while back, and we shared with him about the elevation angle and almanac book of the stars position for every year, month, day, hour, minute, and second, and even the chronometer use for longitude. So, to play dumb with Nathan was just a trap, to possibly clutch Nathan making a mistake so that they could play it endlessly. But the trap backfired on them when Bev admitted that an angle to Polaris instantly gave you your latitude. Yeah, totally agree. What SC Montreal was trying to do was reposition Bev's statement to, you in parentheses, Nathan Oakley personally, can't do anything with an angle. The inference being, you couldn't do this celestial navigation with an angle if you were out at sea. Now that they're not here and we're not in heated debate, because it's not going to get taken out and chunked with them having the debate about Bev's statement being wrong about being able to do nothing with an angle, I'll say maybe I couldn't. While I've learned enough about debating what celestial navigation is, does that mean that if you stuck me out on a boat with a sextant, I'd know all the tricks of rocking the sextant to get it level and things that I can vaguely remember, the details that would get it right? I'd probably miss a step. Especially if I was shitting my pants losing my rag out at sea because I was lost. Yeah, I'd probably get it wrong. I'd probably die at sea because I didn't know how to do the correct procedure with the angle that I could measure to a star. But that would be doing something with an angle. So it's like, who cares whether or not I personally am a skilled navigator? I'm not a navigator. I'm never going to be put in a position where anybody at all has their life depending on me based on my ability to use a sextant. Now, yeah, as I explained to them, I've been out at sea with my sister and now deceased brother-in-law, telling me about how excited they are about their sextant training and showing me how it's done. Now, was I more interested in getting stoned and pissed and sunbathing on their deck while they were trying to tell me all this boring shit that I didn't really pay attention to? Yeah, if I'm ruthlessly honest, yeah, I didn't really pay that much attention. While they were telling me about something that they probably spent 6 months and a shit ton of money learning about so they could go out and see on their boats. What did I see? I saw the deck. I saw the sun. That's what I saw, right? While they're holding their sextants and boring me with it. No offence, Faye, if you're listening. But the reality of that is I couldn't even remember her doing it. Mainly because of my deceased brother-in-law. Those things have been blocked out to a certain extent. But when she did remind me, I was like, oh my God, yeah, I have. I've been out and watched you do it, haven't I, Faye? Mainly because I was having an argument with my now brother-in-law and new husband about celestial navigation. So I've got a Mercator projection on the floor as a rug. And I'm explaining heatedly to my brother-in-law how celestial navigation works. Now, in my lounge, when the boat's not rocking back and forth and I haven't got a sextant actually in my hand, yeah, I can detail how to do it. Does it mean I'd do it at sea under pressure? Probably not. But who gives a shit? That's where SC Montreal wanted to take me. You couldn't use this angle, Nathan. What, the angle that when used proves Bev wrong? It's all I focused on.
And well done by doing that. I think you got to be mentally insane to want to challenge you in that area. I don't know. I shake my head sometimes.
No, they could have got a win to an extent. From what I heard Brian saying, who's obviously a fan of Bevs and watches and is subscribed, saying that they were... What? What? That's a fact. He's always talking about it.
No, they're just used
Brian
to
is
that
not
kind
a
of
fan.
argument. They're just used to that kind of argumentation. This weird, where were you on the night of June 16th? Aha! So you are guilty.
Yeah.
Objection.
Exactly. From what I gleaned from Brian's most
Sorry.
recent video,
In
Brian's most recent video, he's saying, I'm not going to shout at you. I'm not going to call you names. What, stupid, dumb, retarded, like I did. So I gleaned from that Bev's gone away and gone, all of his arguments are invalidated by him shouting at me. Right, okay. No worries. If your dumbass audience, Bev, will swallow that, good for you. You've got a great audience. Obviously, dumb enough to give you money and stuff. I've told them the ones that might have it take heed. Rob Keane, for example, he was the guy that was on the show that was going, no, the nuance of it, you can't do much with an angle. And then he was saying, well, when I led him, I kind of understand that you can do something with an elevation angle, but I don't really know what. Now, I lost my temper with him unnecessarily, and if he was here, I'd apologise to him like I've apologised to you, when I directed my anger that was actually really only aimed at Bev towards Rob and you guys and everyone else around me because I'm annoyed. So he didn't necessarily need to have that, but he's a good example. So he's been subscribed to Bev for a year, subscribed here for 3, or a member. I think he was a paying member or is a paying member. Anyway, he's unaware of what an angle can be used for. Well, I know he's super chatted and stuff. I know he's listening. But why would it be the case that somebody who is listening to us and taking in the information from 10th and everyone else disseminating this stuff about the use of angles, why would it be that you say, I don't really understand it fully? Like, well, because you've been dissuaded from understanding it by being told that it's not useful. That's why. That's how that works. In other words, you've been manipulated, which is unfortunate because that's the kind of guy that's going to gravitate towards somebody that's got a dogged assurance about what they bullshit. Makes it sound.
That's what they do all the time. Because if you try to talk about the geometric horizon, they'll go, no. Why would you ever look at the horizon for this kind of thing? Because they're refraction. So what you should do is blah, blah, blah. This is the same kind of diversions that cause flat earthers to not understand the foundations of an argument, specifically because when they bring them to someone says, no, that's wrong. You have to think of my hypothetical argument.
Yeah, I get you. Basically, with the competition, it was the same with Jose, right? Why would Jose be spending most of his stream slagging me off and telling people how crap we are and moaning about how flat earthers are wrong? Well, Bev's doing the exact same thing. This isn't my first rodeo, right? Now, typically, I don't care. You know, people will rate you on your merits as opposed to how you compare to other people when you're staring at my dick at the urinal, Bev. That's what people do. They go, this person's good, that person's good, I like both of them. Like that Rob Keane guy. However, if one of them is intentionally poisoning the well because they know that there's a limited pool of people, then they're going to try and dissuade you from going to the competition, which is me. So Bev just sees me as his competition, and the arguments are the thing that we're selling. So when someone says, I've seen this product for sale, it seems really good, he says, no, that product's got flaws. My product's better. Let me explain.
That's ridiculous. How has he been a patron of yours for 3 years? Then he goes over there for 1 year, and he's all confused. He doesn't understand anymore.
Because that's what Bev's doing.
Sounds insane to me.
No, it isn't insane at all, because that's what Bev's doing. He's intentionally undermining us. And like the Globebusters crew, this is exactly the same thing happening. We are a threat to Bev in his argumentation. Because if the audience perceives that we've got a better, more coherent argument, then we'll get more popular and he will presumably feel that he's losing out on the fame or whatever it is he wants. I don't know his motivations. So,
well, they're being...
so he's got to poison the well.
It still doesn't make any sense, because if you're listening here for 3 years, you're understanding these arguments. You're understanding things more clear. Then you go over there for a short minute and you buy all the nonsense they're talking about.
No, that's obviously not what happens. What I have observed is people are being persuaded emotionally because they don't like how Nathan behaves. So they disengage from what Nathan says because they see him as an authoritarian. They never understood the arguments to begin with because they just listened to him. How many people actually, after the show, go look stuff up?
Gotcha.
Or do they just talk to Globers?
Gotcha. Right, and then you can disregard our arguments by what's the word? Diluting them down to a single solitary concept and poo-pooing it. For example, you can do fuck all with an angle. So that's a way of just hand-waving the entire argument after presumably poisoning the well about me and how I behave. And based on Brian's video, that's what I've gleaned in terms of Brian's response. He's like, well, I'm not going to be shouting. I'm not going to be calling you names. I will, Bev, but I'll do it after showing what a fucktard you are so that people can understand you're a fucktard when I call you one. If that is somehow going to get your audience, the soft, gentle people that they are, in a bit of a tiz. All right, I'm dealing with the nature of reality and, you know, people's general well-being and concerns about their feelings when I rip people a new asshole based on bullshit that they spread isn't really of much concern to me. All right, you didn't like the way I absolutely annihilated Bev with his stupid shit and then called him a spastic afterwards. Oh, that's a shame.
Or what about his partner coming in and calling you a cheeky F you know what? Emma.
Another liar, as we've just found out from 10th. I'll just read out 10th's description again of SC Montreal coming over and having the elevation angle argument and the book and the almanac and all of it shared with him. So he understood the concepts while he simultaneously parroted off his guru, that's Bev's, hand-wave dismissal of our entire argument after he diluted it down to, well, it's just an angle. Well, our entire argument of use of angles at elevation when you're trying to navigate and find your position is it's just an angle when you boil it down to what Bev has summarised our argument with. And then retorted with, you can do fuck all with it. All right, so basically our entire argument's useless then. What would you say we do, Bev? Well, we go out and we establish Euclidean principles with angles and shit, with levels. Right, okay. So it's much more complicated when you're going through your angles. Right, of course. It's just shit. Right, he obviously is threatened by us.
Learn. He's an anti-flat earther and he refuses to learn from us. So he basically wants to be the entire flat earth debate development team all by himself, and while ignoring everything that we do, because then he didn't think of it.
Well, then he's setting himself up for a downfall because we represent flat earth debate as a group, don't we?
Nathan, by admitting that all you need is an angle to Polaris and you know your latitude, that says a lot, because that means you didn't use the almanac, you didn't use a chronometer. All you know is that that elevation angle to Polaris gives you your latitude. That's what Bev admitted to. Then, if you want to take it a step further, the noon sun sighting, no matter where you are, is the same elevation angle to the sun when it's at high noon for you. For that one, you just need a chronometer set to Greenwich time, and you'll be able to find your longitude by the difference of time. High noon at Greenwich versus high noon where you are. So it blows right through refraction. The baseline is a flat ocean. That's how you get your right angle. That's how you get your elevation angle. The argument is so good, so tight, I don't understand why they fight it.
Because it's so good, because it's so tight.
Just an angle.
You answered your own question. Because it's so good, because it's so tight, and we're not him. So best, undermine that shit quickly.
No, I know, but let me finish. So I could only at this point surmise that if you're going to admit that you can do something with an angle, and that's find your latitude with Polaris, then the reason you're arguing against it isn't what it seems to be. There's another reason.
Yeah, because I'm arguing it. I said this to Brian, and he was like, no, he said it to Ruhif first. I was like, no, chronologically, you've never seen me discussing it because Bev never published it. But it was months ago. Like, a very, very long time ago, I remember distinctly, because whilst having the conversation walking around, I was in a lot more pain than I am now, with my ribs having been broken. But that was ages ago. Not them.
It was right around the same time, Nathan. I'm trying to tell you that. I went on his show and he started hammering me with that.
Right.
Because
so that's
then
just
you
his
went
argument.
on and you said you had recorded it, and I said, well, can we hear it? Unless you went first. It doesn't matter to me, but he's been saying it for a while.
Sure. But no, it's not my material. Talking same thing with Ebon Kim. Right? I would be Ebon Kim if I published Bev's material from Bev's server. It's not mine. Right? That's his living, presumably, if that's what he's doing for a living. I don't know his position in terms of his YouTubing career. But either way, it's not mine to take. If Bev hasn't published it, that's his privilege.
Why would he publish it? He probably looked like an idiot.
That's just telling, isn't it? I go over to him, and he doesn't publish it. What does that tell you? Brian went over and did the same. They didn't publish that either. So when he bullshits and lies to his audience, you can't do anything with an angle. Right, he's not had published to an audience me and Brian telling him precisely what you can do with an angle and pointing out how fucking stupid it is to say you can't do anything with it. When he says literally to me in response, you can do nothing with an angle. Well, I'm detailing to him how he could save his life at sea, and the example of the people all at sea. It's like, you're going to do stuff with angles that you measure. That's what celestial navigation is, you doing stuff with angles. But you can't do anything with an angle. No, you can, but that's all I got back from him. But now it's unpublished. I know you're saying, well, it was just him having a reasonable justification when he said, I only did that to Ruhif. No, he only did that to Ruhif publicly, because he hasn't published the other bit. But can I prove that? Well, I could if I published it, but I ain't mine to publish. But that's why I didn't rely on it. I don't want to be put in a position where I'm suddenly in a dodgy territory with material that doesn't belong to me. Why would I have to want to deal with that? It's not mine. Just have to accept that. But I can prove him wrong without using that. It doesn't matter whether or not he was using that argument against me when he's lying about using it against Ruhif. It doesn't matter if I can prove that. I'm majoring on the minors when I can prove that you can use an angle. That's all I need to do. Very useful, as opposed to being able to do fuck all with it to undermine our argument. I'm done.
The argument is really poor. The argument is really poor when I give this contrast. You know, you ought to consider going to a doctor who's proficient in heart surgery since you got this heart issue. Have you ever done heart surgery? How do you know?
Yeah, it's saying you can do... No, it's the equivalent of you can do fuck all with a scalpel. But they use a scalpel in heart surgery. You can do fuck all with a scalpel. No, you're probably right. I'd probably fuck the guy up and kill him if I was using the scalpel. But you can definitely do stuff with scalpels. Yeah, but I bet if I put you in front of the guy on the operating table, you wouldn't be able to use a scalpel. That was SE argument. That was his tact.
Makes him sound even more stupid.
But the thing is, he was lying too. In the same way we proved Bev to be a liar, as I said 10 minutes ago, 10th has proven SE's a liar. I forgot that you'd gone through him. Maybe it wasn't here, but you'd explained in detail what precisely you can do with an angle. Well, that makes him a liar while he's barking the same argument.
I've explained it.
I'll tell you right. No, he came on the... Hang on. He came on the show. Hey, SE, how you doing? Hey, 10th, he was very friendly. And then he was asking us to explain celestial navigation and have someone come on Bev's channel and do it. And so we just did it right there in front of him and said, well, it's just not an angle, you know. I mean, you guys just say you can F all with an angle. You know, it takes the positions of the stars that are documented in the books called the almanac. It takes a chronometer. We went through everything. And he says, yeah, no, I understand. So he understood the context of everything. Now I'll let Eli share his experience.
Is it me or is 10th Man breaking up a bit?
No, it's you. He's fine. But what you're talking about in terms of what you've just parroted back the SE Montreal would be all the things you do with the angle. So on screen now is the angle. And all of the things that SE Montreal had explained to him are all the things that you're going to do with this angle. While he parrots off Bev's shitty hand wave of our entire argument after boiling it down to it's just an angle, and telling us that this angle on screen now used in celestial navigation, that you'll go forth with all the things he understood because we explained it to him, that you'll do with them. That's the angles. This angle specifically being an elevation angle measurement to, I know it's actually a plane in this example, but it makes no difference. You can't see that. I could just lie and say it was a star. It isn't. It's a plane. But it makes, an aeroplane above the plane, because it's being horizontal plane, vertical plane, and aeroplane are in this picture. You just can't see the aeroplane. But anyway.
It's no different. It's the altitude azimuth system, and we have plenty of diagrams where that is a sun or a star. You know, I just got through sharing that if you had very little knowledge of celestial navigation, just so little, that even you, Nathan, at sea, could do a lot with an angle. You could know at nighttime that angle will give you your latitude. You can know that without anything. And if you just happen to have been wearing your watch, a wristwatch that had London time, and you also had local time on your boat, you could take a high noon angle, elevation angle, right, and get your longitude. That's what you can do with an angle. And you don't have to do any math. You don't have to have the books.
But his argument's
got to have that
self-defeating.
knowledge.
It's like, if you say, well, what we will do with the angle is figure out how long the baseline is. You know, you're going to minus it from 90, times it by 60, right? But he would go, yeah, but with just the angle, you can't do anything. That's his argument, right? Hopefully you all agree. It's like, so if I detail anything that I do with the angle, you're going to say, yeah, but that's not just the angle. Now you're doing some maths with the angle, therefore you can do fuck all with just the angle, even though he didn't actually add the just bit. So his argument's self-defeating, because if you try and attempt to do anything with the angle, he'll say, yeah, but that's not just the angle then, is it? That's the angle plus some maths. Yeah, doing something with it. Absolutely infuriating. I can feel myself getting angry just trying to go through it, because the logic is so flawed.
Well, I think it's because if you say navigation proves, if you say elevation angles prove the Earth is flat, that's kind of different than saying an elevation angle is the utilization of the horizontal plane that you get the vertical off of.
Which proves Earth is flat.
Let me explain. Let me explain. The whole idea is for zenith distance. Now, if you were able to hang a plumb bob and use your zenith, your 90, you can just take the angle from that reference point, but you can't do that at sea. Okay, because if you were able to do that at sea, you'd have the zenith distance immediately. But at sea, it's a two-step process. You have to use the horizon. So you shoot at the horizon by bringing the sun down to it, get it perpendicular with the waggle of the sextant just to make sure it's upright. And then you mark, and then you say that's 50 degrees. Okay, 50 degrees minus 90 is 40. 40 times 60 nautical miles gives you your zenith distance, 2,400 nautical miles, the same that you would have had if you had a plumb bob and the ship wasn't moving. It's all about the zenith distance of the GP of the star and the GP of the observer's zenith. That is flat, straight, and it's a radius of one circle of equal altitude. The ball game is over.
Proving the Earth is flat can't not be. It has to utilize that aspect of Earth to work. So it's not like you can just boil it down and say it's wrong when you say elevation angle measurements prove flat Earth, as it was phrased by Eli. Yeah, I can.
And unlike the black swan, where they get into that trap that QE set, because they're going to say refraction, and we'll say, great, welcome to flat Earth. Then it's not geometric. But unlike that, which is a brilliant argument, by the way, this blows right through refraction. Refraction has no essence-bearing effect on it. It has to be a flat baseline from GP to GP. That requires a 180.
Right, and if there is any issues or errors, you're going to correct them to the flat plane that you're using, because that's what you're going to be using. That's how it's done. So if you say, oh, well, there's an error, what, we have to do dip correction. What are we correcting to? Oh, the flat plane.
The site reduction tables, which are pre-calculated angle measurements, are all preset to sea level. No dip correction by the navigator once he references the Saint-Hilaire intercept method. He takes his sextant observation at sea. He has an assumed position that he thinks he's at because he's been keeping a good log and dead reckoning, and he kind of knows where he's at. He's not, in the Pacific Ocean. He's in the Atlantic. He knows he's above Africa, that kind of stuff. And then he says, this is what I have as an angle, and the bearing, the azimuth, is this. Then he goes to the site reduction tables that has it all figured out for him and said, well, at that azimuth, at that date, that sun, it needs to be this. Oh, so the HC, the height calculated in the book, is a little different than the HO, the height observed. So he says, how much difference? And he sees that it's on that same azimuth line, which is a 90 to the GP, but it's 4 minutes off. So 4 nautical miles, he makes the correction. Now he knows where he's at because he had to guess where he was at first before the correction from the site reduction tables.
It's all moot. Because the process involved in that correction was all revolving around the zenith of the GP being parallel with your zenith. That's how it has to work. So it's like, yeah, you can explain all day long how you have to do certain corrections based on anomalies, if you will. Anomalies in terms of the geometric principle that's being used and the actual observation that you're taking. But the principle has to work with a flat baseline. Doesn't matter what you're correcting for. Site reduction, if you want to call it refraction tables for the horizon, makes absolutely no difference. All you're going to be doing is correcting it to flat.
Just thought I'd read again from pveducation.org. The elevation angle used interchangeably with altitude angle is the angular height of the sun in the sky measured from the horizontal. Confusingly, both altitude and elevation are also used to describe the height in meters above sea level.
I've got about 20 of those so far. I want to add the ballistics one that you read out the other day, if you can dig it out. I know you put it on a screenshot. If you've got a link, I'll grab it off
Nathan,
that. Go on.
Please go to Master D, Nathan, and read the
Too small. Can't read
height
that.
of I.
I can't read that. That's too small.
Okay. Do you want me to read it?
Yes, please, because I can't.
Would you like me to read it?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Height of I. The height of I over the surface of the water in feet or meters. The site reduction tables used for the site with the sextant assume the I to be at ocean level. In the general case, and because of the height of I above sea level, angle measured with the sextant, HS, is little too high since the actual horizon seen by the observer is a little further away, and therefore a little below the rational horizon at the edge of the horizontal plane. The angle he measured with the sextant therefore needs to be corrected for the dip, the small angle between the horizontal plane, rational horizon, and the actual horizon, the differential. They say it, it's right there.
Yep. All day.
Zenith to zenith, GP to GP is 180. It's ocean surface. You're finding Hawaii because it's on the Earth. The zenith distance puts you there when you can't see it because you're able to figure out where you are in relationship to it by celestial navigation. And you know which way to steer your boat.
Cool. It's all right there. It's nice and easily accessible. When I was making the most recent videos, to put slide after slide after slide after slide of angles being used. I thought it was funny seeing all those slides that you've provided over the year, or maybe longer, with Bev and SE Montreal going, you can do F all with an angle. All these angle slides go by.
It's just an angle.
Just an angle.
An angle.
There's more coming. There's more people haven't seen. It's just a long game that's being played on these guys. They have no idea.
Yeah, but Ken, when you said the other day, like if somebody comes along and they have a good argument, we'd be more than happy to jump on and join in. Hey, this is great. Listen to this. And it's kind of funny how this certain argument, certain people seem to be hesitant or totally outright deny and won't get on board. So there's an agenda, okay?
Well, the agenda seems to be to just bypass it because they don't like it. Because apparently they're not getting a grip on it. Because if you get a grip on the argument, then why wouldn't you like it?
Okay, let me remind you. There was a certain party saying hashtag NFED. And now all of a sudden this party is here coming up with this nonsense. Seems like there's a little unison going on between two groups of people.
Party? What party? Why wasn't I invited?
You were. You're the roast.
Well, it's you know, a lot of groups in FE like commingle. Like, for instance, I'm technically a part of the group you're talking about. Obviously, I don't share their views. So yeah, there's a lot of people in a lot of places that have hurt feelings about how they're treated, I guess.
Okay, someone was treated roughly when he didn't comprehend the scientific method, to the point where that person started calling the other person a delivery boy, right? So their feelings were hurt, right? So hashtag end flat earth debate. Now it seems Bev has got his own little crew going there, trying to undermine the arguments that are being presented here.
Did we all just
I don't
miss,
know, it seems like a team effort.
Did we all just miss that Eli's admitted to being a terrorist sympathiser? Was it only me that picked up on that?
I don't listen to when Eli says that anymore because he's one of us. I don't care what he thinks in his own mind. He's a flat earth debate guy, and he'll always be.
He's definitely a terrorist sympathizer.
Well, listen, you can call it terrorist sympathizer. I can call it 007. So you do you.
What a lovely day!